Yes, correspondence files over at
over here.
Caitlin, it's an orange
Okay,
folder.
just asking. It's 2 pages.
Oh, all right.
Okay, I'm ready. Good evening and welcome to the November 15th, 2017 SAU 55 board meeting. It is 7 o'clock, I'll call it, here at Timberlane. And we'll ask for the call to order and roll call. Mrs. Belcher, please.
Kathleen Abuzizi, Peter Buelow,
Here.
Brian Boyle,
Here.
Jason Cipriano,
Here.
Stephanie Dooley, Kimberly Farah, Donna Green, Dan Guy,
Here.
Caitlin Parnell,
Here.
Susan Sherman,
Here.
Gregory Spiro,
Here.
James
Here.
Kelly Ward, and Karen Yusenka.
Here.
Also present this evening at the table are the Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Paul Metzler, the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Roxanne Wilson, and the Business Administrator, Attorney Jeffrey Dowd. Also present as an administrator is, and not as an administrator, as an SAU staff member is Business Operations Coordinator John Barry.
I'll ask you to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing after the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence, if you could remain standing for a moment, to recognize the passing of Jacob Hazeltine, Timberlane alumnus, this past week, 20 years old. Thank you, everybody. Well, we're here this evening to bring a public hearing of the proposed 18-19 SAU budget. So let me discuss how I'd like to run this, and if you hear me out before you make your objections, I'd appreciate it. I'd like to open the hearing for the 18-19 SAU budget at 7:03, we'll call it. Our purpose here tonight is to hear a budget presentation, to have a board discussion, to open it to the public for comments and suggestions, to close the public hearing after we have heard those suggestions or comments, and then to do our business of amending, et cetera, to get this budget straightened out so that it can go on to the Timberlane and Hampstead ballots. All right, so I'm opening the meeting, opening the hearing, and I'm asking for Jeff and Dr. Metzler, if they would, to propose, to show us the final proposal here of the budget for our action.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Jeffrey Dowd, Business Administrator and Chief Financial Officer, SAU55. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I am pleased to present the budget for the 2018-2019 fiscal year for SAU 55. You'll find that the expenditures budget from 2017-18 was $2,017,000 and currently is proposed $2,185,511. Among the budget changes, or among the changes to the budget for the year upcoming, and these have been discussed with the SAU board, but for the benefit of the public hearing, we will I'll discuss them as well. We've had a couple new initiatives in the SAU, and if you recall, the SAU supports two school districts, the Timberlane School District and the Hampstead School District. And as a result of that, we have a proposal in our budget upcoming for a biometric electronic fingerprint scanner. And since we support two school districts as well as the SAU operations itself, this machine will assist us in being able to process our fingerprints for employees and volunteers, and to the extent that it applies vendors, in a more timely manner with a greater rate of success. The rate of failure of fingerprints right now is strong enough so that this solution is being recommended to be able to streamline our process for obtaining fingerprints, because when the fingerprints are taken, we have a better degree of certainty as to where, what will be acceptable on those fingerprints, because the machine itself will indicate as such. what's readable and what's not. We also have an additional expense this year, which we had not anticipated coming up so quickly, but our timekeeping system currently is being phased out by, in the current version, by our provider, and we've identified solution ExecuTime, which ties in with our general ledger and enterprise system, Infinite Visions. The cost difference in that is about $8,867. That timekeeping system supports the timekeeping needs for any and every employee of SAU55, Hampstead School District, and the Timberlane Regional School District. The original electronic timekeeping system was implemented a number of years ago in relation to a response for Department of Labor findings on timeliness of our ability to maintain our employee time and to be able to pay appropriately. So this solution has worked for us over the course of the number of years that we've been using it. It allows for us to be able to have time entered by an employee, approved by an employee, reviewed and approved by their manager, and reviewed for timeliness and completeness before it is entered into our payroll system. The system also handles time off requests for vacation and for out-of-district conferences and meetings. So this provides a great opportunity for us to have that process streamlined, to have it within our general ledger and enterprise system generally. In addition to that, we have a staffing request for one new hire, which would be for support, an administrative position in support of response to right-to-know requests, as well as to be able to provide the support that we're hearing the need for our transportation department, for our transportation coordinator, particularly the communication that goes along with that role and that function. Aside from that, I don't know that there's anything outstanding in the budget. I certainly can entertain any questions that you may have on that.
Yeah, so if you'd entertain your questions through me, and then we can go on. I'm going to start. So Jeff, on the biometric fingerprint scanner, can you tell me which line we're talking? Is that in the 741 line, where the scanner would show up under new equipment?
Correct, it's under new equipment, that is
Okay.
correct, yep.
And the new time, what are we going to call it, time card, is it under technology services,
That's-
360?
That's in 360, correct,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. And of course, I know where the salary for an additional person would be. I'd like to also ask if I could, I did a little research on the biometric fingerprint scanners. The large SAUs that I was able to contact, and I asked a couple other board members to do some of that as well, to reach out and make some contacts, have this type of scanner. They don't go to their local police department and take upwards to 200 people in a year, perhaps. I mean, that might be a high number. It could be as low as 80 in a year, but it could be as high as a 200 in an SAU this size. And we're not just talking about scanning new teachers. It could be anyone. It could be a volunteer coach, a PTA person. It could be a custodial staff, kitchen staff, etc. So it covers any of those types of situations, and many of our volunteers as well. So 200 possible. I'm not saying that all go in the same day to a police department, but my understanding is that the police chief here, while they're extremely collegial, would find that a bit strenuous to expect the Plastow police to cover all the, and I'm sure Hampstead would feel the same way, although I haven't talked to the Hampstead police, of trying to do our Cory checks or our fingerprint scanning. So.
As far as knowledge of that, we also have a burden to know that the fingerprinting has been completed and that it's been submitted for our employees. And right now, we're able to control that aspect of that work, and to have this go off to a police department and be calling, oh, did so-and-so come in, were they fingerprinted, did it get sent off?
Yeah.
Have you heard back? Is there a rate of failure associated with it? It takes an awful lot of time, additional time, in the process, and we're really looking to make sure that we can get our employees and vendors and volunteers in and to have their fingerprints taken and authenticated as quickly as possible.
Does anyone else from the board want to comment about, let's stick with one thing at a time. Can we just do with a fingerprint scanner at the time? I asked, thank Henry.
I contacted some school districts to see what process they used, and the Salem School District, which I believe is pretty comparable in size to ours, the number of schools, the number of employees that they have, they do it in-house. They do it right at the SAU. They have a designated person who takes care of the fingerprinting and does the query checks. The reason being is they've just found it was more efficient to do it that way. Again, it took the burden actually off of the Salem Police Department, where appointments had to be made. You couldn't just walk in and say you want to do this. You'd have to make an appointment, and time became an issue. So Salem does it. And then an interesting thing is I called SAU54, which really only has 3 schools, Nottingham, Stratford, and Northwood. And I asked what they have, and she said, we also do it in-house. And I didn't know much about SAU44, so I said, well, how many schools do you have? In the 3, one in each town, so we only have 3 schools. So I said, so you still found this better usage, even though you don't have a large number of employees? And she said, yes, it was just more efficient, cost-effective for us to do it in-house than to have to keep utilizing the police station. So those were the 2 that I checked out, and I thought it was interesting that one that even has less employees found it beneficial and uses it.
Far smaller district, 44 is than us. Other comments or questions that you want to ask Jeff about biometric fingerprint scanning? I like that term, biometric. Yes, Mrs. Green?
Thank you. If I could ask Mrs. Jashenka, did both of those districts use the biometric scanner that we're considering purchasing?
I don't know the exact name that they had, no.
Did they have a biometric scanner? Or did they just do it in-house?
They did it all in-house.
Okay, we do it in-house now without a scanner. So so it's not, I mean, we're currently doing it in-house, other districts do it in-house. So your argument isn't to a biometric scanner. So I also did a little research, and they too have a failure rate. It's not like you can just take a biometric scan and you're guaranteed 100% good fingerprint. They also have issues. So,
Could you help me understand what those issues are? As I understand it, this would be similar to, your iPhone, if you wanted to get a fingerprint access to it, that it would say, I'm reading this, I've got that, that's a good read. Now, there could be a failure rate after that, perhaps when that goes from our office to another, but could you help me understand what those are? No.
I didn't pursue that. My point is, we currently do it in-house. Why change? And it seems to me if we're having both a time system installed this year as well as a biometric scanner, I mean, can't we choose one or the other? I don't see the need for doing both at once, especially since we have a new position and there's going to be ample, manpower to chase after failed
Do you have
fingerprints.
Another
So-
question? Dawn?
So I just see it as too much all at once and unnecessary to begin with.
Anyone else choose to voice an opinion, or I can tell you a little bit about the biometric scanner. So when I put my hand on the biometric scanner, it tells right then, oh, that's a bad fingerprint. Take it off, do it again. But when I roll it in the black goo and put it on a card and package that card up and send that card to Concord, yes, then they look at it, their forensic technicians look at it and say, God, that's a bad fingerprint, send it back. So then we've got that delay. There's a difference failure rate from me doing, that's a failure, do it again, to,
That's correct. And the
you gotta
solution,
send it out.
the solution that we're exploring assigns a quality rating
Yeah.
to the fingerprint on the screen as it's capturing it. So we have a pretty good idea whether the fingerprint will be acceptable or not.
Yes, Earl.
I think it's the important piece here, and not to get into recent events, but this is how we determine who's safe to be alone with children, right? So this is a necessary piece of equipment so that we can hire people in an efficient manner and make sure that they're safe to be with children. And And so I think this is, this really speaks to the safety of our kids. And in this day and age, I can't think of anything that's more important than that. So thank you.
Who recommended this piece of equipment as a better alternative to what we've been doing, Jeff?
Based on the rejection rates, and I can assure our fingerprinting process is about as sound as we can get it to be here with physical ink and paper and that sort of thing. This came through our human resources director, and it was from one of her staff who routinely processes the fingerprints who had identified that. And our 16-17 rejection rate was approximately 18%.
Yeah.
If I could add to that?
Yes, Doctor.
Some of this predates Attorney Dowd. We've been looking at something like this to improve the efficiency in the fingerprinting and making sure about the safety piece for several years. The price has come down considerably, almost like large screen TVs. I don't remember the exact prices, but I think when we first started looking at this, it was probably in the $50,000 range. So the price has come down. So I think it's at a price point now that's reasonable, and I think it'll really help with the efficiency here in terms of making sure that the people that are alone with children in both our districts are safe to be with them.
And then we have confirmation of their ability to be with those children as quickly as possible.
Other comments or questions for Mr. Dowd about fingerprinting?
Doesn't it also speed up our hiring process
Of course it is.
in
Does, sure.
general?
It-
Like, we were losing some people because had to wait so long for their background check to come through before we could notify them that they got hired.
Yeah, I can speak to that. That in the efficiency of hiring, and it's a very competitive market right now for all personnel. And so when they wait and they get offers from other districts that are able to do this in a more efficient manner, we do lose some. I don't have a number of we lost X amount, but I can tell you with 100% certainty, we did lose some people in the hiring process because we didn't process them quickly enough. And so
Good.
that's important.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Kim?
So you don't make an offer of hiring contingent upon a clean background check?
Dr. Wilson does the offers, but, it's a matter of.
So you wait for the background
make-
check to be complete?
Everyone gets a conditional offer of employment until that background check comes in, and then that
Right.
makes it a final offer after that.
Okay, so that is not holding up the conditional offer.
It's not holding up the conditional offer,
Okay.
but sometimes it does hold up the processing.
I'm
They
giving
can't
everybody a
get-
little bit of leeway going sideways here, but remember, we are trying to talk about whether $9,250 would be a good value for us collectively to invest in, to ask our public to invest in, to take care of some of these issues with fingerprinting. And if it holds up a chaperone from being able to go on the Hawaii trip, and therefore they can't take, you gotta wait for that, or you can't take that chaperone, it's a problem. The more time efficiency, the better.
And I don't get into the semantics about what's conditional, and I'm concerned with when's the first day of when they go into work? Right, that's what gets held up, not a conditional offer. So while they're waiting to be allowed to go to work, they accept an offer somewhere else that's not conditional, and they go to work somewhere else. And so that's where we lose. And again, I don't have a number, but I can guarantee you that we have lost some because of the efficiency in terms of trying to process people during a hiring process, so. Thank
Okay,
you.
so unless there's new information about the biometric fingerprint scanner, I'd like to move on to perhaps talking about timeout, time card, whatever this new thing would be. Is this a new question or new thought, Donna?
It is a new question. I'd like to know if, in your opinion, the students are safe now around the people we have on campus.
Well, obviously they are, because
You fingerprint.
so it's not about them being safe or unsafe in terms of who's currently with them. It's about the efficiency of new hires and getting them, making sure they're safe to be with students. So I can guarantee, for the viewing public, that the people that are with children should be with children. And they have cleared their background checks, and they're certainly great hires, and we have wonderful staff in both of our districts. Again, this is about the efficiency. It's about making sure that we do the best we can to make sure that the people that we choose to have that could be alone with children are 100% safe to be with them. So this will help with our efficiency. It's not to say that the current staff in any way, shape, or form, made it through. It just took longer. And so this is really will help with the efficiency in terms of hiring.
Thank you. That clarifies things, because for
Okay.
a moment I was hearing that it was an issue of
Okay,
student
stop.
safety, and now I hear it's an issue of efficiency, so I'm
stop.
glad to clarify that.
Thank you so much for your opinion, Mrs. Green. Now, time card. Do you have questions to Jeff about this time card issue? None of you have ever participated in that system. I have. It's, it would be nice if we had something more efficient, easier to use, so that people could check in and check out every day.
When our current timekeeping
Clock.
system was implemented, it was implemented in response to certain Department of Labor findings at the time. We do have an enterprise system, which is nice because it is our human resources and financial system, payroll, all of that in one bucket, accounts payable and that. And the system we have right now is a separate system. And so when I took over in the role, it was my desire to try and find an integrated solution so that we would not have any inconsistencies between the two programs and that you could get more real-time information. And if you recall, for example, there was no live connection. If you were to
That's
go
right.
in and request vacation time, did I even have vacation time to take? There was no live connection. And it's an issue of data integrity and being able to make sure that our reporting and processing is as quick and complete as possible. So my intent was certainly to look at it, and it's probably a year ahead of where we wanted to be. However, with an unsupported product, we're not in a very good position on a long-term basis. in
Have
our
we had
system.
technology crashes in this system that we currently have?
Not per se. Not per se. We've had some inconsistencies in certain procedures that the system runs. We have ways to check all of that.
Okay.
But we have noticed some inconsistencies. We haven't had
All
as
of us
well.
use this, Timberlane and Hampstead, we
And
all
SAU.
use this timekeeping program. All staff, all admin, all paras,
All
right?
food service, all hourly.
Food service, everybody checks in and out through that system.
Everyone from the superintendent down to
Right, right.
building principals.
Right.
Mrs. Green had asked, I believe I'll attribute the question to Mrs. Green from a previous meeting relating to whether there were any time clock machines, like any physical hardware devices that we would need to buy. They are available. We are not proposing or requesting
Right,
any of
that's not what
those.
we're proposing here.
No, the solution that we have simply goes on to our
Computers.
micro and mini computers that we have at all of our locations and sits right on through a web-based
Right.
format. Sits on all of the machines in the district, so they're readily available, so there's no additional dedicated hardware costs associated with it.
Questions from anybody? If not, I'll open it up. General questions before I open up to anybody in the public that has a question or suggestion or comment. Any general questions you want to ask? Yes, Dan?
Jeff, could you, the employee insurance, did you get an actual rate?
I received a rate of 6.8% on the GMR for the insurance.
Okay.
And that has come in since our initial discussion on the budget.
Right. So 6.8%,
Approximately 6.8%.
approximately. Anybody else? Yes, Donna?
So I don't see that reflected in our new figures, but I do see the figures being changed. Please correct me if I'm wrong. From my copy of October 10th, the final budget line was 2.2 million, and now I'm seeing it's 2.185. So
It was what in the first draft? I'm sorry, I didn't bring my first draft with me.
with adjustments after the meeting, it was $2,215,511.
And now it's 2.16, right?
$2,185,511.
That's
what it was.
I think
Right.
we had the reduction, remember, we asked, we were
We took a
requesting two
person out,
positions, and we took X amount of
We
thousand
took a
out.
employee request out, so,
Right.
but the number went down.
Right. Okay, but why hasn't the insurance line been adjusted?
Well, this is my understanding about the insurance, that greatest maximum rate, that 6.8%, is an average cost, and I guess Attorney Dowd could tell you a little bit more. It's not as simple as the bottom, that last line, okay, well, you budgeted for 10, 6.8, okay, there's 3.2. If you want to talk a little bit about the averages, because I ask that question, well, I ask that question every year, but I get different answers now because I have a different business administrator, so.
Oh, right.
Yeah, they're the same answers, I just understand them differently, but go ahead.
Yep, so when we do that, we do get an average, but it really can vary based on the plan. And some plans may be a little bit higher, some plans may be a little bit lower. You'll see the actuals in at 200 in 2016, 17, 297,280. And you'll see that the budget for that year was 375,749. Budget upcoming and projected at 412,500. And when I look at and factor in, I don't factor per se that every employee is going to be utilizing the most expensive plan option that we have. It's not an exact science. We know what we have and what our costs are, and I go with some assumptions if they're known, and have to plan accordingly. So it's not 100% of our employee base multiplied by 100% of the most expensive plan, but based on participation and overall costs, that's how I arrive at that number.
Brian?
But nevertheless, it doesn't answer my question. Why wasn't it reduced from the 10% that it was budgeted to 7%? And if I could correct the record, the 2.2 million was after all the adjustments at the end of the meeting. That was already after we took out one position, but added in the fingerprint and the
Time card.
yeah, the time card. So that 2.2 million was the final number that we walked out of here. And I'm delighted to see that it's lower, but I just want to understand how it got lower, and also why the insurance line hasn't been adjusted.
If I could, I had recognized Brian.
I have, from our last meeting, after the adjustment, we were down to 2,185,511.
185.
185,511, which I
We're now-
believe,
We're down lower than that, right?
that's the number, that's the number
That's the
you're at
number
tonight.
we're at.
That's the number, that is the number that we,
That's right.
that's the number we came to.
We took 40 off.
The back half of my question is, Madam Chair, that
Yes.
at our last meeting, when we arrived at that, Mrs. Green put a motion out and it failed. I do think we should be revisiting. There were 2 positions proposed,
Correct.
We got it down to 1.
and it got down to 1, but there was no additional monies taken out for the benefits for the second position.
The
Correct.
benefit package was still in for that
That's
second
for the
person.
second position.
And I
So-
understand, and I know we all understand that. You got a budget for, what if they take this plan? What if they take this plan?
But the
You don't
position's-
know.
But the
What
position's
until
not
you-
there.
Right.
No,
But if you-
when you came to
But
the,
take out what that position would be for benefits.
the second position, and that position, and Donna's motion, which I seconded, was 14,000, and there's no way you're getting a benefit package for 14,000 with an employee. That's impossible.
That's a low number.
I mean, you're shaking your head there, Jeff, so if you'd be one,
Would be nice. I would put it that way.
it would be nice, but you and I both know it's gotta be, I don't know, $25,000 to
we get-
$40,000. It's, because obviously you're talking retirement and everything, so.
But they're not budgeted at 100%.
Right.
So it's not every position budgeted at 100%. So you're asking, I mean, what's the number then?
I'm asking a number, because the position's not there. What happened is, you came in front of the board and said, we want 2 positions. The board said, we'll give you 1. And then there was,
So you took
so
out the
so you took
salary,
the
but not
position
the
away, but
benefits.
you left the benefits for the second position, which is not there. What is that? It's gotta be at least 20, 25, it's not nothing.
Okay, so
That's why I'm asking
let's
that,
keep that in the hopper.
okay?
Because we're discussing the budget, and then when we get ready to approve, amend,
Okay.
we'll have that time, because I do want to open it up to any public who might want to speak. Kim and then Danny.
Back to Mrs. Green's point on the insurance. you're saying that the stated GMR is, what was it,
6.8.
6.8? So, I guess the question still has not been answered yet, because the difference between the 2017 to 2018 reflects a 10% rate, not the rate that you just quoted us. So I'm not sure why that number is 412.
Mhm.
It's
Did
not.
you have an answer to that?
It's not on, again, it's not, and he can jump in, it's not on 100, he didn't budget at 100%, so like I started to answer that. It's not as simple as, okay, reduce that line by 3.2% now, because you've budgeted for 10 and it's only 6.8. He can tell you how he budgeted, I don't know how he came up with the number, I know it's not 100%. Is it 90%, is it 80%, whatever formula he used to figure out what number needed to be there. Because I asked these questions when I went through this budget with him, about, all right, so we're gonna reduce this or that, and he says, no, that line, I'm not comfortable with that line being lower, primarily because he believes that we'll spend close to that based on the plans that people are selecting in terms of new hires. Now, he can go into more detail about it, but that was my explanation when I said it's not as simple as just reducing the last line by 3.2, because you went up 10 and it's only 6.8. Follow the numbers?
I follow the numbers, but then the question is, before you knew what that GMR was gonna be, 6.8, what were you anticipating that to be? Were you anticipating it to be 10?
I was
Were
looking
you-
at 10, yeah.
Yeah, he said
So you were
10.
looking at 10, so
That's what he plugged in to start with.
you plugged in to
While he was
start with.
waiting for,
Well, he was waiting,
yeah,
but now, even though it's not 10 and it's 6.8, that number doesn't come down? I'm not following that.
okay, so
Well,
keep
you're not
that
following
in
me because of
order.
the logic that I just gave you, it's, because if it was 10% and now it's 6.8, your 3.2 is somewhere. I'm trying to tell you that when he selected that number, he was not even comfortable that that number was high enough even at 10%. That number, he wasn't comfortable. So when we removed the position, that line wasn't touched. I said, well, are you comfortable, is that line coming down? Are you comfortable with it at 412?
412.
And so he has some sort of formula that he knows what he's gonna have to pay in terms of insurance. Now, I follow your logic, I'm like, if it's 412 and it's 6.8 and you budgeted for 10, it would be 3.2% lower,
Take it down.
logically, right? But he has an explanation as to why that number, that he wasn't comfortable with bringing that number down 3.2%. Because I asked that question.
Okay, but can I just put it in another perspective?
I'll entertain that, but Dan's
Okay.
next.
It's up 25%
Brian.
from the actual 16, 17.
Oh, yeah,
That's all,
that's-
that's all I'm putting.
that's-
And Dr. Farah is correct.
It
It
We
is,
have-
I'm just
We have different
trying to put
people in
this
the
in
roles
perspective.
now,
Yeah.
so he
I
has
change.
decisions that he has to make in terms of the benefits, because new people choose different plans, and different plans cost different amounts to us. Some people have families, some people are single, some people take the high deductible plan, some people don't, and so that number changes. So what we spent last year is really, it's not as relevant as to what he needs to spend next year with who he thinks is going to be in the building and what plans they may select. So that's how
Dan.
that works.
Never mind, I just figured it out.
You're all set? Brian, comment?
A comment and question, I guess, to Jeff, because I just took the 412,500, divided it by 14.
Mhm.
That's 29,464. So, I don't know, to Dr. Metzel's point, so I don't know how you're going about doing that. I have no idea what a family plan is, how you're carrying, but that, you had 13, you're now budgeting for 14. So if you take that total number, you divide it by 4, you're 412,500, so that's 29,464. Does that sound what you're thinking for, that sounds like a family plan, and is that how you do it?
Well, essentially, your math certainly works out.
Well, I hope so.
So, trust your math. Ultimately, the number is what it is, and it was arrived at on a very, I think, conservative basis based on the fact that we don't have a very large pool. And
Yeah, it costs more.
it was based on a 10% increase. That has since come in at 6.8%. When I present this budget to this board, I certainly make every effort to make sure, when we've gone through it once and gone through it a second time, that's the budget. Those are the numbers. And I publish or post for the public hearing for the benefit of everyone knowing that we're on the same page with the budget. If we wanted to reduce that number to reflect the 6.8% versus the 10%, that's something that may be valid. That's something that at this point in the process, where we've sat, we've talked, we've met, and this board has agreed upon what will be sent out to the public. If we have information that comes in between that time and now is the time to have that discussion.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
Right.
I mean, I assume that you, if you take a job in the SAU, you're offered a family plan? That's what it is?
Well, no, you're offered, yeah, whatever suits your need.
Yeah.
Okay, but I would think you have to budget for whatever that is. So I'm asking the question, is that does that number sound right? That it's 29.5 approximately for a,
If everybody took the highest price plan,
I'm just,
and it was the family plan, that would not cover it.
That wouldn't cover the.
No, wouldn't
family.
cover it.
29,000 wouldn't cover.
No.
a family plan.
29,500 doesn't cover it?
No, you're in the 35 range. I'm just, no, I don't.
That's why I'm asking the question.
So 29 is just an
Right,
average when
that's the
you
question.
divide the number in.
That's
So
all, that's all I'm asking.
there are people that it costs more than 29, and there are people that probably cost less than 29, if we're using 29 as the number.
Okay.
Other questions or concerns? Yes, Donna?
Thank you. So the guaranteed maximum rate represents an average of the increase of the pool of products that we offer to our employees. What does that GMR represent?
So I believe that you just stated that it represented an average of the pool of plans that are offered to our employees.
Is that correct or not?
So, yeah.
So,
And I'll state that it may not be a weighted, it's not weighted in the sense that we don't always, a plan may have a higher increase. We may have more or fewer employees participating in that plan.
you don't think it's a weighted average?
So well, and our averages change as well. Meaning we may have people who take one plan and people who take another plan, depending on what their needs are and who we have working for us.
And how many times in the past has the rate actually matched the guaranteed maximum rate?
It's a very good question. I don't have that. I wish you would ask me about that.
It didn't in 16, 17, it was lower. I know that, but
It was lower. We had a very high,
it was gonna be an astronomical, and then it dropped.
yeah, we had a very high.
That's why the actuals come out.
Round numbers, not sure, I think it was like 22%, I
Yeah,
think it came in
out
about
at-
15.
Yeah, I was gonna say
if
12.
I remember
yeah.
correctly,
Yeah,
so.
so we were thrilled, because we budgeted that much money, so we didn't need to use that much money. Peter, question?
Well, I guess more of a comment than anything. So listening to this discussion, which is quite interesting, it strikes me that we should be able to take that 412,500 and reduce it down to 396,800, roughly.
That might be the 14,000 that Mrs. Green was talking about.
Right, well, it's
Several
15 and
weeks ago.
change, actually, but, yeah. So, you know,
Okay, well, when we get to that, making amendments and motions, keep that thought in mind. I would ask that, if you decide to do that, you give Mr. Dowd a chance to speak about the comfortability of all of that.
well, that's one reason I stated it, and I was actually kind of hoping that Mr. Dowd would speak to that.
oh, sure.
So you would propose taking it to 396?
About 400.
396,800.
I think that would be an accurate reflection of where I'm calculating participation to be based on where the GMR has come in.
Okay.
Other questions or concerns before I open it up to, we do have a member of the public here. I want him to have a chance if he wishes to speak. Kim, another question on another topic?
No, it's on the same topic.
Okay.
Same topic. So, again, going back to the previous budget where we had built in, you had built in 2 extra positions in their insurance. That, you had that number as 412,500. In this budget, we only have 1 extra person and it's still at 412,500. So is that what Mr. Belo is
That's what
saying?
Mr. Belo is suggesting.
We're cutting that
what
amount
Brian was
out.
too. Mhm.
Okay.
And can I just make a point of clarification, if I'm understanding this correctly? At the last meeting where we discussed this budget and this line item of insurance, we did not have the GMR at that point in
Right.
time.
Right, we didn't want to mess around, remember we?
Exactly.
No, and just for history's sake, you know, I don't know what year it was a year or two ago. I think we had to come back at this particular meeting and increase it
Yeah.
because we didn't budget high enough. We got, the GMR came in higher than what we thought. Like, say we did 10 and it came in at, then we got to 15 or something, we came back and had to add money at this meeting, so. It's happened both ways, because that budget number is just a guess. on what we think the greatest maximum rate will be, GMR in that particular season. It's happened both ways.
Anybody else before I open it to the public? Kim?
Sorry,
No, it's
as
fine.
the
I just-
as the logic follows on the fact that we're adding one position, not two,
Right.
would that not also apply to an increase here in employee retirement? Why is that number the same? Shouldn't it be lower? Because this previous budget was for 2 extras, and this one is only for 1 extra?
If you wanted to make that adjustment, I think that'd be fine.
Is there a reason that it wasn't made from the last time to this time?
Well, again, the budget was here, it was set and agreed upon by the board, and that goes out for publication, for the public hearing. And so, the way that I look at that is you all met as a board,
We
agreed on that budget
didn't
number.
make any changes there.
Right.
We didn't make any. Yes, thank you, Mr. Go
You
ahead.
don't just
Just point, I
arbitrarily
was gonna say,
change
point
the-
of clarification.
It just didn't start,
For a matter of clarification, this board approved the budget to move to public hearing.
Right.
Mr. Dowd, you do not have the authority, once we have approved it to go to public hearing, to then unilaterally just change numbers before it gets to public hearing.
so
Correct, this is a forum.
tonight, we can entertain amendments or some decisions after I give our poor public an opportunity to offer some suggestions or opinions. Yes, Dr. Farr.
To Mr. Cipriano's point, I'm well aware of that, but I thought at the last meeting that we discussed trying to make a determination as to what that removal would be in terms of benefits. Now, I certainly understand you
No,
can't do
we
that
didn't-
after,
we
but I
didn't.
thought that there was gonna be some discussion.
We were waiting for that GMR, and I'm thrilled we know it as of tonight. There's been other times you didn't know it. Before my time, they didn't know what it was. They were kind of fuddling around in the dark, trying to figure out what to put in there for numbers. So, I think we can make some of those amendments and removals, should the board decide to do that, after we've given our public an opportunity. Again, I'm not trying to close anybody down from having a chance to express their opinion, but if I could, I'd like to move on to anyone from the public wishing to speak or offer an opinion. Just for the record, would you state your name and the town that you live in?
Sure. Leo Grondin, Atkinson, and while the actual increase, seems relatively reasonable, 160,000 or so, that is an 8% increase, or, approximately 8% increase, and a somewhat shocking 13% or so increase over just last year's actual, and that last year's actual includes what I assume to be somewhat anomaly with the sick leave redemption. There must have been a couple of retirements or whatever.
There were.
And so, my charge would be to somehow figure out how to do this a little less expensively, and I'm looking at our current budget meetings, and with the facility needs and the requests coming in, this is a pretty staggering increase when you look at it at a percentage level, and if you assume those kinds of increases apply to the general budget, then, we're gonna be all taxed out of our towns. So that's my request. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there anyone else from the public that wishes to offer their suggestions or opinions? If not, then I'm gonna close this public hearing at, we'll call it 7:45. Kathy, I think that's pretty close. And now, bring it back to the board to, entertain, motions or amendments, to approve and move this budget along for the Timberland and Hampstead pallets. I'm sorry?
You had
Peter.
that number. I didn't write it down.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to make a motion to
So
reduce,
let's put the budget on the floor first. Could we make a motion to put the budget on the floor first, get a second, and then make amendments?
sure, I make a motion to put the budget of $2,185,511.
I'll second.
Kathy, you got that?
Discussion?
Now I'll open it up to discussions.
Figure that out again.
Peter, a chance, if you don't, Brian, if you'd wait a sec, 'cause
Sure.
I interrupted him, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna make, offer an amendment to decrease that by, hold on a second, I lost my number.
16,000?
by,
Yeah, it should be
no,
50,
not by
but
one,
it's a
by,
70,000 difference.
You had it,
I'm s-
396,800 is what you moved one number from.
yeah, but I gotta actually do the math to figure out how much we're decreasing by.
Why don't you just say decrease
Okay,
that line 211?
Decrease that
okay,
line
decrease
to-
line, 211 to 396,800.
396, 800. Do we have a second for that amendment?
Line item was, I'm so sorry. You moved
That's, it's 211 employee insurance.
211, employee insurance. That's
It's a
okay. Let that go
$70,000
in here.
difference.
Danny seconded.
Reflected in-
Discussion on the motion to reduce employee insurance line 211 down to 396,800. Any discussion? Yes, Brian?
I'm in favor of the motion, as long as we're gonna go right down and go employee retirement, social security, and other benefits.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay,
But we got to, I think we have to do them one at a time,
that's
is all.
fine, okay.
Yeah, I think it would be cleaner if we did one at a time,
All right,
and then
I
try to
agree.
do it all at once. All right. If there's no further discussion, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the amendment to reduce line 211 to 396,800. That looks unanimous. Kathy, 12 of us here tonight? 12 of us here? Did I count that right? 12.
Yep.
All right. So now we have a new amended
Okay, okay.
budget number, if somebody could do that.
$2,169,811.
2 million, say it again,
169,811.
811. That's, we have any other amendments? Brian,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to take the line item of 221 employee retirement and lower it 7,000 even.
and Y seven, can I
That's
get
what
a
I-
second? Can I get a second for
Second.
that? Brian. Brian is making the motion to lower it to 7. Peter is seconding it. We have some discussion.
Item, please.
It's
This is
line
employee
2.
retirement, 221.
221.
So I figured these new hires they're a much lower rate. So I just, quite frankly, divided the total staff by 16, because I know it's really 14.
So that takes it to 115,223, I believe.
So, yeah, I was just trying to keep it round. I was,
I'm
I'm at-
gonna ask Mr. Dowd for advice there. Are you comfortable reducing the line by 7,000?
Well, that would take us below the actual 1617, and
Yeah.
the number that I calculate would be a little over 3,000. So, 3,150 would be the exact number that I'd be calculating for that, if we were to reduce it based on salary reduced.
okay, I will withdraw my motion and stick with that.
So,
'Cause,
Peter,
I mean, what's the actual, what was that based on? How do we go lower? What happened?
well, 7,000, he's saying would take it lower than the 16, 17 actual, right? Is that correct?
Well, the thing is that in 16, 17, 2 people retired, and that was the actual cost of their,
Right, and we only
Higher.
budgeted 107,000, right?
but one of those was an extremely senior person who retired with a lot of,
Oh, I
you
see.
know.
Yeah, okay, because I'm thinking
So,
that doesn't make sense.
we're not gonna, I mean, saying that it would take us below 16, 17 is not a relevant measure, because we're not gonna have another,
It's not a relevant measure,
it's not, in my opinion, a relevant
Okay.
measure.
In your opinion.
Question, Madam Chair?
yes.
So we could ask,
Yes, can we
business-
please ask the,
I don't want him to, he can talk about
No,
the
Jim.
numbers in a second. I don't want to talk about personnel, but there are personnel here that are eligible to retire and are considering retiring in the near
would be
future.
in that higher pool?
That's correct.
I just have a question, though, for, I believe the way this works, Jeff, is, these are percentages, correct? So if you're making 40,000, you're making whatever it is. So what is that employee that's a state type thing, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So is it 3% of a 50 or 50, you know, these are the new positions. We're not talking about hiring senior people here, so even if you pick a number at 50 or 50,000.
If seven's too high, what's,
I'm asking, yeah, what is the percentage of that?
Yeah,
Is it 3?
I've used 10.5%, 12 is fine as well. So, again, because we do have some, you know, you always have potential for people to be retiring and getting
Well,
paid.
but I'm just saying, if it's 10%, that'd be $5,000. You know, we're not looking at hiring someone for 30,000 or less. Correct?
30,000 is what we removed last,
So we removed.
that's what we removed.
we remove 30?
So
No,
10.5.
the position that the board approved,
Was 40.
wasn't there a number?
Yes,
But we removed
It's what
30.
you removed, it's not what you approved.
Right, we removed 30,
Okay.
so you want to
You're
make
still
it a
talking-
comparable
You gotta
number.
talk apples
to
and
what-
apples,
Okay,
remove.
so you moved, so we moved 30. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine,
10%
and we'll go with 3.
Okay.
That's fine.
So,
No problem.
all right, what I'm hearing is a gentleman's agreement to remove the motion, to remove the
Okay.
amendment? Are
Yeah.
you removing, you said
He
you
Yes,
were.
I
he
would-
withdrew his.
He withdrew
Yes,
his
I withdrew-
motion, and the
yes.
second was,
Me,
and you
same.
removed. So now we're clean again. Do I entertain another amendment here regarding,
I'll put it up there for 3,000. I would make a motion to lower 221 employee retirement by 3,000.
I'll second that.
so now it's Brian and Danny. Reduce it by 3,000. Right? Not-
Yes, that's not, yeah.
Discussion or comments or questions about the amendment? If not, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor of reducing 221 employee retirement by 3,000? That looks unanimous. So now that line is, somebody do the calculation, 121,223. And the bottom line now is
$2,166,811.
$2,166,811.
811.
See, numbers, you have to go slow for the.
Sorry.
All right, so now we have a new bottom line. Are there any other amendments you'd like to consider? Dan?
If we could ask, Mr. Dowd, what the percentage of a $30,000 employee would be paying into Social Security?
This is on the 230 line,
Oh.
correct?
I happen to have that number.
Excellent.
Your question
Of
is
course you
timely.
do. You're paid to have that number.
Okay, let's keep our peanut gallery comments to a minimum. Yes, Mr. Dowd?
All right. So 2340, $2,340.
Mr. Guide?
I would like to motion to decrease the 230 line, Social Security, by $2,340.
I'd like to second.
$2,340. Motion by Dan, second by Kathleen. Discussion, comments, questions on the amendment. Yes, Dr.
I
Flynn.
have a question about this because there's something that does not quite work in terms, last time the salary was 1107615. This time our salaries are 1077615. That's a difference of $40,000. According to the minutes, we removed $30,000 in salaries, so I'm not this does not work for me. Mrs. Green and I have been looking at this.
All right, well,
Well,
is it
this
pertinent to the
amendment.
Social Security?
Yes, it is, because the Social Security is dependent on the salary. And we seem to have a disagreement here in the number of the salary. 40,000 was removed according to these two budgets. 30,000 is reflected in the minutes.
And Mr. Dowd just calculated for what the Social Security would be on the 30,000.
30,000, so he's calculating on the 30.
So the
Jeff?
Social Security figure is correct for the reduction of the $2,340 based on a $30,000 salary.
But the budget reflected a $40,000 decrease in salary.
Instead of a 30.
But so it's not relevant to this motion, but it's definitely a good catch.
I think we can act on this amendment, and then we can obviously go back and,
can I just, point of clarification, so I understand, Dr. Farrow, we 10,000 light on the salary line? Is that what you're saying?
You took too
You
much
took
away.
10,000 out, you're, yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
He took 10
this-
more than he should have
This
taken.
should read 1087.
Took 40 out instead of 30 out. You can add, right, but let's fix this social security thing first, because I hear what you're saying, but can we do this first? Thank you so much. So unless there's any discussions about social security that I'm living with every day, welcome to my world.
You're awfully young for Social Security, sir.
I'm collecting. That's about it. I'll entertain then a vote. All in favor of reducing line 230 by $2,340. That's unanimous. So now, that brings Kathleen, a
Oh,
line.
2,100,000.
No, wait, go back to social security line, please.
Oh, okay, I didn't do that math.
82,737.
82,737.
Yes.
And now the bottom line of,
2,164,471.
any other amendments? I'm looking for amendments, and then we'll talk about making that correction.
Well, can I ask a question? On the other employee benefits line, is there anything that can be deducted from there based on the
Based on
position
removing a
reduction?
$30,000 person?
It doesn't really factor into the positions.
It didn't really look like there was any.
No.
All right.
So do you think we're set in this set of stuff and go back to the total salary line and fix that?
Can I have the total salary line, Ms. Chairman?
Total salary line, yes.
I can just confirm that Dr. Farrer is correct, that Attorney Dowd did take 40 out when he should have taken 30 out, so that line is $10,000 light from what it should be.
So can we make that just a clerical correction?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, make it a motion then.
I'll make the motion that we increase the salary line from its current $1,077,615 by $10,000 to $1,087,615.
Second. Get a second from Peter on that. You understand what we're doing here? We're making that correction. Good catch, Dr. Farrer and Donna.
Give
Donna.
Donna's.
We'll give Donna the credit. And shame on the chairman, I did not bring my written overdraft budget. I guess that would be appropriate that we do that from now on. Have everything you ever owned with you. So, I'll call for a vote if there's no discussion. We understand why we're doing that. Nobody's confused. Call for a vote then, all in favor of 1,087,615 on the salary line. That looks like 11 opposed, 1 abstaining, 0. So the count is 11-1-0. You with me, Mrs. Belcher? So now, that brings our bottom line, Kathleen,
$2,174,471.
that's our amended budget at this time. Any other
May I ask a question?
changes? Yes.
Mr. Dowd?
Yes,
Don't
I
leave
have
that.
your numbers.
Pardon me?
But I might have your numbers. Are you looking for the additional 2 categories?
No.
No? Good, please.
Should I? Actually, I was going up, and I know we talked about it at the last meeting, I apologize, it slips my mind why we did this. On the very top of the operating expenses, line 330. Why did we make that leap from 9,000 to 12 when
Oh,
it
yeah,
cost under 8 in 16-17?
Talked about that.
Yeah, I know we did this, I said that, and I'm just trying to get reminded.
Yeah, there
Mind him, or refresh his mind.
had been some discussion involving switching auditors perhaps. And if that were to be the case, I don't think that we could count on the favorable rate that we've been receiving. So I increased that to reflect the potential of that occurrence.
if in fact we changed auditors, and when would we change auditors? In the spring?
Sure.
Thank you.
After? Anything else then? Yes, Donna?
I'd like to make a motion to reduce the audit line by $2,000.
The what line down?
The audit, 330.
Audit line, 330 line by how much?
2,000. So that will still give us a $2,000 buffer over what the actual, more than $2,000.
A second, a second.
Go ahead, Mary.
Greg's gonna second. Now your discussion was what, Donna? Because that'll give us what?
It will give us more than a $2,000 buffer over the actual cost of our current auditing
16,
services.
17.
And if our new auditors can't do it for that, they don't deserve the business.
We go back to the old auditors?
There will be somebody who can do it for less.
All right. So we've got a motion on the floor to amend the budget by reducing it by $2,000. The audit line, line 330. Everyone's clear? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ayes win. We move.
Keep your nays up for a moment.
Sorry. Keep your nay hand up.
Thank you.
Right, so now the audit line 330 is now at $10,000, yes? $10,000, and that reduces the bottom line, Kathleen.
$2,172,471.
The other amendments, yes, Donna?
I'd like to motion that we reduce the conference and travel expense line by $2,000. That's line 580. It's
So she's,
currently,
wait, hang on, let's get your motion on the floor, and then you can discuss it. So this is 580, conference and travel expenses, which is at 20,000 right now. The actuals in 16, 17 was 18,000. They went over budget. Projection of 20, which was the 17, 18 budget is 20. So not, is there a second there? Somebody give a second, Kim?
Second.
So, to reduce it by 2,000, is that what you're saying? By 2. Discussion, comments?
I
This
just
is-
want to say that I definitely see the benefit to having, and this is mostly professional development, conference and travel.
That's right.
We need to have our leaders of education keeping up on current education trends and able to travel to these conferences. I mean, sometimes it's valuable information on the other side of the country. And we'll have to be able to pay for them to travel to it. It's no increase over the 17-18 year. I think it's a worthwhile investment in our education, both of our districts.
Any big conferences or something coming up? Because I know there are some years where it's kind of flat, and then there'll be some kind of exciting thing that we'd like you to go to, or like our other staff here to go to.
Yeah, there are the annual conferences, obviously, you know, and if you remember correctly, this was a shift, because we have contractual benefits, if you would, to take courses, but like Dr. Wilson, myself, and several other people, there are no more courses for us to take, so this is how we keep up our certification, this is how we stay on top of, you know, current trends in education. So this would be like courses for us, and that's how we maintain our certification. So I think the 20,000 is probably the right number. That's why I had him put 20,000 again. This year, we're gonna be buffing right up against that with some commitments in the following year. So that's really it. You know, they're not less expensive next year. You know, each year the prices go up just a bit, and memberships and those sorts of things, so.
Any other comments or questions about the amendment on the floor to reduce that line by $2,000? Yes, Donna?
Given that this budget has been growing astronomically, I think we can rein our conference and travel expenses in to be within the 16-17 actual. That was an increase over the 16-17, which was an increase over the 15-17.
Okay.
In other words, there's got to be a top limit. And within that, these conferences and travel expenses have to fit. And I do not think it's unreasonable to ask two superintendents to, and their staff to control their expenses to within $18,000 a year. Look, this is a school, this is a board meeting. I'm allowed to speak.
Discussion into why you think $2,000 was worthwhile.
I
moving.
was.
You need to be careful. There's no reason to speak to me that way.
Yes, there certainly
I am
is.
nothing but I'm congenial, Mrs. Green. So I'm
And you
gonna
are
call the
interrupting
question.
me when I haven't finished my point.
I think we have the point. Can we call for a vote then? All in favor of reducing the conference and travel expenditure line by $2,000? Raise your hand for yay. 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that fails, that motion fails, so we're back to 20,000. Any other amendments? We're still at the bottom line of $2,172,471. Dan?
If I could ask Mr. Dowd to just clarify something for me?
Sure.
Jeff, line 810, we went over by quite a bit and still not budgeting for it. Why did we go over by so much?
Where are you?
Front page, sorry, dues and fees. The
Dues and
actual was
fees.
higher and you still didn't, you know, see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is there a reason that it was just higher that year and?
But there's some things that you up yourself, it's a 3-year kind of dues and fees, and then it won't come for a couple more years, could that be part of it? That's a little bit
Okay.
higher than,
There's a fee structure, to Ms. Sherman's point, sometimes it's multiple years and you get a reduced rate, right? And so, and they don't all overlap at the same time, so I guess that's how we came up with that number as opposed to the actual
So
spend.
that year, we may have had 2 3-year ones come up or something like that. You had to
Yeah,
Could be.
and we have new employees, and so some
Join
employees, the dues and fees are different for different
Join
reasons.
different things
It's
and-
different organizations that they may or may not be part of.
anybody else have a question? Brian?
Well, I just want to point out that, Dan, basically the overall, though, it looks like from a budget to expenditure, there was still about $140,000, so it's not like we have to worry about.
No, and I wasn't looking to increase, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know what the reasoning was if he had,
Yep.
it, so it wouldn't be overspent again.
Yeah, I mean, the
was my
bottom
point.
line wasn't
Yep.
overspent, I was just going line by line. Okay. Donna,
I'd like to motion to reduce the legal services line
can you give me the
by
line?
390. It's,
390, legal services, yes.
yes, I'd like to motion to reduce it by $20,000.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Thank you. I'd like to address the reason for this.
Sure, go ahead, while you,
Thank you. This was budgeted at $1,500 in 16-17.
yes, we see that on the paper.
In 16-17, okay, so in 1 year, it went from $1,500 to $40,000. And in the next year, there's another $40,000. Now, there was a Supreme Court challenge that the year of 17-18. There was a Supreme Court challenge this, 2 maybe. No, 1 the previous year and 1 the next year, I think. So, both of those were done without a vote of the board, without,
Stay on the
without
number.
authorization of the board. And it seems to me if we give too much money to the legal services, it only encourages litigation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment? Yes, Caitlin?
I would be in favor of keeping this number as it is because I think looking at the last few years, it's important for the SAU to have that legal protection, both for opinions and court cases as they come up. So I suggest keeping it where it is.
Thank you for your opinion. Yes, Kathleen, and then Brian, I'm sorry.
I also noticed that the 2016-17 legal budget was $1,500. However, the actual was $16,396. And at the time when this board last year was in this budgeting process and decided to increase this legal line to $40,000, we had already had knowledge of some lawsuits that were in the works. I agree that this $40,000 needs to stay there. The superintendent is acting in accordance with policy, as the board has approved, to leverage that line as needed.
Thank you. Kathleen, Brian.
Okay, well, I look at, so there was actually court cases, which don't happen every day. You had court cases, and you actually spent $16,396. And I look in the budget, almost 3 times that.
Right, so right now, we have
That-
40,000.
That seems very high to me. So if you have $20,000, that's more money than you actually spent to go to New Hampshire Supreme Court.
Can I clarify for you? So the 2016-17 created a shortfall, if you will, for that legal line services. When, this time last year, when we were doing this budget, we're currently in the 2017-18 budget year, so we don't have the actuals for the 17-18 budget year, but as we were doing the budget, we had knowledge of the need for an increase in that line. We are budgeting out for 18-19 now. I don't see that that need is going away,
Okay, well, you're halfway through the year.
Yep, so
and we don't have actuals.
We've spent
Yes, we
far
do.
more than
Right.
that money that we spent 16, 17, we've already
Right, so
exceeded
that
that
was-
considerably.
That was gonna be my question.
What the actuals were.
The actuals, I mean,
As
an
to date.
estimated actuals for right now in this 17-18 year we're going to come pretty close to 40 or go over 40?
It all depends, you know, I mean, as, if it continues, legal opinions and the different things, you know, defending us, you know, it's not us forcing litigation, it's other people that do it, and so we have to defend the SAU and the districts, and so, that number is obviously, that 40 that's the right number.
I'll tell you from, you know, because of being in this position now, it isn't just going to court. It's every time we seek, which we should, make sure we get the best advice, that's not free. And it adds up in a month, in 2 months, in 6 months. It has added up. I'm not saying
And
it's
for the
gonna
record,
exceed 40,000.
SAU didn't initiate any litigation.
I understand. Jason and then Kim.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm glad you brought it up, because it's not solely a function of a court case going to the Supreme Court. And so I'm glad you reminded us that it's also a function of legal opinions that we get, as well as other actions that are not in the courts. So, for example, actions at the Board of Education, at the State Board of Education, where we have representation to defend the board. So not everything is, and not every case makes it to the Supreme Court as well. So we shouldn't use the Supreme Court as the metric. Though I understand that, you know, that when it goes up to that level, that's indicative of how long the case has gone on, and so it is a measure, but it shouldn't be the only measure. I'm always leery about handcuffing us from a position, and I think it bears reminding, we discussed this during the budget session each time. We're really talking about 2 years from now. This is gonna cover us into 2019, 2017, so we're talking about 2 years from now. We don't know, you know, we can't, none of us can predict what legal entanglements that might be occurring 2 years from now. We can judge based on current, you know, based on history and so forth, and nor does this board have the authority or have the ability to say to someone, please don't file a lawsuit against us because we've already spent everything we budgeted for in this line. I would much rather see us have a surplus that can be returned in the line than put us in a position where we're trying to find the money to defend ourselves against someone who, you know, doesn't look at it from the you spent that line, you know what, I'll wait a year before I file my suit.
Kim, you were next.
What's the actual spend to date on the legal line for this current fiscal year that started July 1? We have at least 4 months. We should have an actual.
We don't even have the bills for.
We have no bills for the last 4
we have
months?
some, I don't have that number in front of me. We have some Outstanding billing, we get it billed monthly? Yeah, so it's considerable. It's a lot more than what's on there on the spend from last year, I can tell you that.
But we don't have an actual number.
I just said I don't have the number in
Okay,
front of me.
okay, I'm just,
Well, I mean, I
I'm
don't
sorry,
have it.
I'm sorry,
You asked
just,
twice, I don't have it the
I'm
first time, I
sorry,
don't have
I'm
it the
just,
second time.
All right, right, right.
I apologize, I'm used to having those numbers.
I am concerned that cutting it by 20,000 is going to be gonna be disastrous. I'd rather have a little more than not enough there, because we spent way over it in 16, 17. Now, the other comments or concerns before I call for a vote. Brian and then Donna.
Trying to be nice, I can't hear. I'm just trying to make sure that, to follow up on Kim's point. I made my second there based on last year's 16,396. You're very confident that we're gonna be well over that. Well, we're gonna be, our actuals for this fiscal
17,
year
18,
will be well over that 16.5, and over 20, maybe 25,000. That's what you're thinking.
Am I confident about that? Absolutely.
Okay, that's okay. That's what I want to know.
Thank you, Brian. Donna.
So what I want to point out to the board is that the board has never taken a vote to spend any of this legal line. This is all done. This is all expenditures done without approval of the board. There's no question of defending. What there is a question of stepping aside, letting it go, settling, or just behaving better. I mean, those are the options.
Behaving better.
But, yes,
Is this a budget
those are
conversation?
the options.
That's
Let's
self-explanatory.
discuss the numbers. We're gonna discuss the numbers. I'm gonna
We-
ask you both all to stop,
Behaving better.
and let's come back to this amendment on the floor, please. I think we've all made our point. I think everybody in the room knows where everybody stands. So I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor then of cutting the legal line, of reducing, the legal line, which is 390, is that correct? Legal services, from 40,000 by $20,000. Raise your hand for aye. 1. Opposed? I believe that's 11 of us. So now the line is still at 40,000. Any other amendments, discussions? The bottom line hasn't changed now. It's still 2,172,471. We have carved a little away from there, so. Danny, question or?
Jeff, what are the other two numbers for workers' comp and unemployment comp?
Workers' comp, so this is back to line 2.
Yeah, I think
I think Attorney Dowd has those.
he has, and that's why I was asking.
With the numbers.
260.
For the removal of the $30,000 position,
The line 250 unemployment comp, it's at 700.
It would be
612.
I know, I just,
Oh,
On a $2
Well,
million.
the way I understand unemployment and workman's comp, these are insurances that we subscribe to based on how many employees that we have, not per individual employee, but it's more of a range of employees. So this is just an insurance payment, and there would be no change based on the position
I
reduction.
might have mixed up the lines. Whatever the two numbers that you had.
They were employee retirement, just on the 10,000 if you want to be precise about it.
But we already adjusted that.
We took that out.
So you're all
That's all
set there.
done.
Yeah, we adjusted that.
Okay.
So the ones he's asking about, I believe, are,
Well, no, if that's.
no? You're all set.
You've taken care of, you've taken
think
care
we're
of the exact.
The numbers are gonna be
Thank you,
zeros, but I
Kathleen.
didn't
No
wanna
problem.
We're good.
tip that off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all set.
Okay. Any other amendments, discussions? If not, I'm gonna look for, yes, Donna?
I would just like to ask a question about contracted services, because it's gone
Line
up,
452.
it's gone up quite a bit. And I'd just like to understand what's in there.
Well, it went up quite a bit from,
Is this the line where we moved stuff?
right, we put stuff, they moved it into different categories last year, remember? So in 16, 17, so look at the actuals there.
Yeah.
Budgeted 47, because we put something else in there.
And that's my question.
Yeah, what's in that line now? Is that your question, Donna? In the 17-18 budget,
In 452?
in 452?
Jeff? Your binder's not as big as Mr. Stokinger's.
I know, but the pages don't turn as quickly as his do. So is that contracted services? Let's see the, line, that was 422,
452.
452.
Right.
Okay,
That's the 50,500.
50,500. Yeah, and I think an increase in that had been really just cop sync at 20,000.
Oh, Cobb Sync.
Yeah, 460. And we have our
Cop sync
mail
isn't it?
courier in there, split between them, our benefit strategies.
What was that, Cobb Sync?
That's
And our
correct, yeah.
courier,
Yeah.
that's not a lot of money there. And what was the other one?
We have our benefit strategies.
Oh, benefit strategies.
Yep, our employment postings, Omni Group for benefits,
They moved that over here.
Survey Monkey for any exit interviews that we do. But really, the incremental increase will be the comp sync.
Cobb Sync.
Which we didn't spend,
Oh, we did.
right? We didn't spend that.
No,
That
we
was-
Not yet, we haven't.
Not all, well,
We have spent some, but not all.
We're about 65% or something.
it will be, it will be. spent.
Right, so you're
What we're waiting on.
in the 17-18 budget.
Yeah, I don't wanna get into the security talk. What we're waiting
Oh.
on is the setup
Yep,
in
in
other
all four
towns.
towns, yep,
It's not here, it's at the
right.
town.
Okay, but the point
So
is
that-
that 20,000 wasn't spent in 16, 17,
It wasn't
right? Or
in the-
17, 18?
It hasn't been
we're
spent
spending it
yet.
now.
We're gonna
spending-
spend it now? Okay.
we're spending
So
it.
then,
We're at about 65% of it spent, and the rest will be spent as soon as the receiving
okay,
town.
so then it should be removed from 18, 19.
It's an annual fee,
It's an annual thing, Karen.
so that would be each year.
Well,
I thought that was implementation.
It was-
so, are you speaking to the projected versus the last year's budget?
I'm speaking about the 17, 18 budget now.
Yeah.
That went up, virtually $17,000,
And that was Cobb Sync.
right? That was Cop Sync.
It's an annual fee.
It's every year.
So that entire amount of money is the annual fee?
No,
The entire, it is the software charge, that's the annual cost.
well, he tried to tell you what else is in that contracted line besides Cobb Sync. I thought you wanted to know why it went up from 32 to 47, and that was the answer he gave.
Yeah.
Because of Cobb Sync. But
Good.
what else is in that line yet again, Mr. Dowd? Benefit strategies, the courier that we use, his
Recruiting. you know,
recruiting,
What we use for sites to advertise positions.
advertisement.
How we manage our 403B
Offsite benefit strategies.
benefit strategies, mail courier, and cop sync.
Okay,
Okay, so what's in the other employee benefits, though? Again, I'm sorry, because I would have thought that benefit strategies would have been under other employee benefits. Is that just annuities?
benefit strategies is the 403 stuff, right?
You talking about line 290?
Yeah.
Line 290, if I remember correctly, well, you can go ahead, it's budgeted at about, it's unfunded liabilities.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
funded at about 50%.
Excellent, she got it.
Yeah.
When she says right, she's got it. Right, Donna?
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything
Thank you.
else? Kim?
I'd like to go up to the salary line. Within that line, there's, I'm assuming there's about 30,000 that's for the 3% merit increase, if I'm calculating that out right. What is?
The merit pool?
The merit pool, what is that number?
That's what I had calculated.
It should be about 30,000, correct?
Approximately that, yeah.
I know. Hang in there. I'm just saying, everybody hang in there.
I'd like to make a motion to reduce the salary line by $10,000 to reflect a decrease of the merit pool from 3% to 2%.
I second that.
$10,000.
Correct.
So there's a motion on the floor to decrease the salary line, but impacting the merit pool by $10,000, which Dr. Farah feels is a reduction from a 3% merit pool that not everybody gets 3%, but down to a 2% merit pool cap, correct? Everyone understand that motion?
It's not a cap, it's an average.
Average, sorry, I'm sorry. I stand corrected, Mr. Beal.
I apologize.
It's fine for you to correct me. Anybody else have a comment or concern or question before I let the motioner make her comments? Okay, go, Kim.
I'm making that based on a couple of things, and I certainly appreciate the gentleman that is here for the public hearing. And I share your concern in terms of the increases in the budgets, both the SAU and the school, our school district. And as the representative from Danville, I know we just had yet another increase of approximately 9% in our town. I am aware that our teaching staff is slightly below the average in terms of salary. From the data I've been looking at, the SAU salaries are near the top. And with a 2% merit, it does allow for some people to get above 2%. Some people may be less than 2%. And I feel it sends a strong message about fiscal responsibility if we reduce this at least from 3 to 2.
Thank you. Anybody else? Comments? Are we,
I just want to point out that in all of my management experience, and I've had a lot of it, a demoralized workforce is not going to output productively.
Dr. Metzler?
Yeah, several things. I feel like that unreasonably ties our hands. 1% cost of living. We're still experiencing some salary compression from years past, and I think it's I don't find it to be a big number. I find it to be a conservative number in terms of being able to reward. I mean, if you look at SAU salaries, which you did, I'm sure Dr. Farah, you'll notice if you really looked at what we did last year, our bigger percentages went to the support staff than actually the top level positions here. So our people are working harder than they ever have. 18 months from now, looking at what are we going to say in July about how do we reward them for the time that they're spending here. And 3%, a pool of 3% to be able to reward the employees for the work they're doing is, I think it's a conservative number, and I think it's I don't find it to be outrageous in any way, shape, or form.
So, Jason.
To Dr. Metzler's point, this dropping to 2% essentially effectively eliminates the merit pool, and the reason I say that is 2% is a cost of living adjustment, and so really what we're looking at is a 1% merit pool. And if you're wondering where I got the 2% cost of living adjustment, that's actually what the Social Security Administration has announced for 2018 cost of living adjustment. So if we went flat 2% across all employees, that's a cost of living adjustment, and then anything beyond that 2% is a true merit based. Everything up to 2% is a cost of living increase consistent with what the Social Security has already announced. That's why my concern is dropping it down to 2% effectively eliminates a merit pool at that point.
Thank you, Jason. Brian?
Does anyone in the room happen to know, because I don't, what the rate is for the teachers and the support staff? What that rate was?
They're all, the contracts
The contracts,
numbers?
there's two
Well,
contracts.
we've got all different kinds of contracts here in this room, so Hampstead is different.
Well, we have 3 different
They have
contracts we
3
just passed.
contracts, we have 2, and they're all a little different.
Collective bargaining agreements are not a comparison point for.
Well, they're the bulk of our people. I'm just asking a question for, if you have the bulk, I'm just asking.
I can tell you that the coming out of our collective bargain, they all exceed 2%, if that's what your question is. I don't have the
That's in
final-
Hampstead.
Yes.
Timberlane's, I mean, it varied, but it was 2.5
Do we know
one
what that
year,
is?
and then it goes back down to 2, and then it went back up to
They have
2.5.
steps and lanes
Track
and different
and-
things. We don't have that here.
So
Yeah.
if memory serves correct, from when we looked at this, when you look at the step and cost of living increase, year over year, 3.5% even for our unions, our labor, union staff.
That's the
Teachers.
average increase for a teacher.
Right.
It's about 3.5%.
And that's
Timberlane.
probably a little high.
Timberlane.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, I'm not trying to,
I'm
I
just,
don't believe it's a comparison point to what we're talking about.
okay.
You asked the question.
Yes, that's a question now. How about that, the Timberlane support staff? That
I'd say
was,
it's a little
About the
less than
same?
that.
Don't have the contracts here with me.
I wish I
I don't want
brought
to
all
get the
that
number
with
wrong,
me.
they're about the same because they have steps and lanes and things.
Levels and, what about in Hampstead? About the same? Yep.
And in some instances, there are people off the grid in Hampstead, so again, that's not, you can't even compare that to Timberlane because it's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm leery, because really, you're looking at all over the place, depending on the lane, depending on the health insurance package that they took. Because we offer multiple ones, they actually saw in their paycheck, some people saw double-digit increases, but that's a function of the health plan they choose, plus the, plus salary increases and things like that, so it is really all over the place.
It might be all over the place, but to Dr. Farrah's point, and being the father of a teacher he's not a Wyndham teacher, but historically, or currently, I guess more accurately put, the Timberlane teachers are around that state average. And I believe, I don't know percentage-wise, but I think and you can't really paint the broad brush here because you can't just sit back because you could look at the superintendent and then look at the assistant, because there's 14 different positions. So I can't, there's no broad brush to paint to me at the SAU. I just know that the bulk of our staff is not in the higher part of the state. And I know it's different, but I have a hard time sitting on a board looking at people differently. They're public employees, they work for the district, they're all good workers, and we're not trying to hurt anybody, but I just look at, and I think I brought this up in the spring during one of our previous meetings, that when I make my vote, I look at, there's over 500 people who work for this. I don't know what happens in Hampstead once you guys we're part of the SAU board together, but once, what happens to your teachers and stuff, I do not know that. But I just know that our group, I believe when the time comes, is deservedly going to get a higher raise. That's what I'm hoping anyway.
You think the Timberlane teachers are gonna get a higher raise?
I think Timberlane teachers are underpaid. That's my opinion, yes.
Yes, that they're underpaid. I was misunderstanding you. So you think?
They need a higher raise. That's
Oh,
when the
you
time
think
comes.
when we contract again, when we
That's what I'm
negotiate
thinking.
again,
Yes.
that they should get a higher
That's my
rate.
opinion, yes.
We should be careful about talking about,
Right.
those are unfair labor practices, and we should be very careful about having those discussions.
So let's come back to the amendment that's on the floor, to reduce the salary line by $10,000, which would reduce the pool from 3% to 2%. Remember, there's no step and track here, there's no union here, there's no union contracts here, there's no, the type of thing that we have in our schools and our paras, and I believe in in Hampstead, in your custodial staff, which we don't have a union over here. So, Kim?
Two things. One, I do appreciate how hard the staff works, and we did just add one extra staff person to the SAU. I'm really still uncertain what that person is exactly doing, because anyway. And then the other thing is, when you look at the cut from 3% to 2%, and you speak to the fact that there's compression of some of the lower salary earners, that I don't even know how to explain this exactly, but if you have a top earner who's already at the top, and you take that 3% down to 2%, it's a larger amount that you can still be giving to somebody if you're looking at compression of the lower level salaries. So,
This is a merit pool, too.
yes, I understand that. I understand
Final
that.
point,
Since
Dr.
we want to
Benson.
compare employees, my employees, or our employees, they don't have continuing contracts. They
That's
have
right.
no protection. They're not in a union. They are out there on their own.
That's right.
So that's something when you leave a union, and it's a different risk that you take on. That has to have some value. These people are incredible. They work really hard. 3%, I'm telling you, is a very conservative number. I appreciate the discussion, but,
If there's no other relevant, is this a new point, Donna? Are you just gonna make your point again? I don't mean to be rude to you, but
I haven't
you've
even
made your
addressed
point.
this issue.
You've made your point. Go ahead, make it
You
again.
haven't even addressed this issue. Thank you. Almost everybody in the world outside of the school district is on a year-to-year. They're not even on a year-to-year contract. They're on an at-will contract.
That's what they are here.
hardly anybody gets a cost of living increase. Our taxpayers look at the benefits that our SAU employees get and envy them. Envy them.
We have.
And the compression that's going on, I didn't hear is in the lower ranks. Because I saw a big adjustment to the human resource salary this past year, a big increase. So I don't think the compression, we might like to think that the compression is at the lower levels, but I'm not convinced that that's actually what was said or what was what's actually being said. So, thank you.
I'd like to call the question.
Okay. I'll entertain that. So you understand what the amendment is? It's to reduce the salary line by 10,000, which would reduce that merit pool from 3 to 2.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. That was, I'm just
Oh, that's-
reiterating Kim's motion. That's what she is suggesting.
You're absolutely correct.
No, we're moving the question. All in favor of reducing that salary line by $10,000? 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, is that right? 8 of us?
Yep.
8, so that motion fails, so we are back to the salary line of $1,087,615, is that right? Have I got that right? Yes. Anything else in this bottom line has not changed now. We're still at $2,172,471. If I'm repeating myself, it's because I want our public to know what's going on here. They don't have the papers in front of them. They're just listening to the Vimeo. We have a very long agenda that we haven't even gotten to yet, so I would remind us I'm not saying we should rush. I'm happy to have done this discussion. Donna, something else you'd like to amend?
I'd like to point out that so far we've removed $23,040 from associated benefits. Oh, no, actually $21,000 from associated benefits,
Okay.
if I've got that right. $21,000. So that isn't near the $30,000 that we were aiming for.
Oh, who was aiming for that? Oh,
Well, you know.
Well, I was
because-
guessing, but I did not know what the amount was on it. It was a $30,000 job,
Right,
so.
well,
yeah.
all right.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Boyle,
just
for
so the
clearing
board
that up.
knows, we've taken 21,000 out
And
of
we
benefits.
took 2,000 out of auditing,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so, anything else? If not, yes, Mr. Sweeney?
Can I ask Mr. Dowd a question?
Certainly.
Is there a line item in this budget that puts us in a bad position? So what I'm asking you, is there a line item that should be increased?
I think the biggest risk at this point, from my perspective, I'm concerned about audit. That's one area that I do think that we're at risk. I think that it's very difficult to tell we're going to be 18 months out from now. Where we do have new staff, new employees, looking at different functions, belonging to different organizations, I think that we have some risk with dues and fees as well, only because that picture has changed a little bit from business and facilities. So we really would need a good year's run rate to make a determination on that, but aside from that, I think we're in decent shape.
Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you.
You all set? Yes, Kathleen?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve this 2018-19 budget.
So, you're saying that then that would be allocated over to Hampstead and to Timberlane appropriately for the 18-19 budget year?
Correct.
So it's $2,172,471. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
So this is our amended, we are now at the amended number. Annie is seconding that, Kathy? I'm gonna call for a vote then, hearing no discussion.
Wait, before this, I'm so sorry, I want to make sure that we're not doing a procedural error, because we opened up the conversation a little bit differently this time, with the, didn't we, with
No, actually,
the motion?
the motion's already out there, right?
Yeah, we didn't
The
need this
original
motion.
motion's already out
Okay.
I
there.
don't need this motion, but
But we have to amend the original motion because it's a different.
can you go way back to the original motion I had Mr. Belo make to get the we had to get it on the floor before we could start, in my procedural mind, before we could start amending it. So I made Peter put the whole budget on, and then we started whittling away.
So now we have
We have
after
an
the amendment.
amended, we need to vote on that amended
Budget.
line.
Right.
Kathy, it was as soon as the public hearing ended.
Right, that's what I'm looking for. General version,
So you're saying we didn't need another motion?
That's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
so I just
Thinking
wanna
we
make sure.
don't need the second motion to now
Yeah,
vote.
point of order, yeah, it's basically, Kathleen would call the question.
Call the
If you want to
question.
read the number, the final number into the record, just so it's very clear, I mean, you can do that,
I have
but.
it right here, I'm sorry, I didn't highlight.
And then we amended.
So the original motion was by Mr. Bulow to put the budget of the actual, the 2,185,511, on the floor for discussion, seconded by Mr. Cipriano. And then there was, he immediately made a motion to start, the first motion was to amend by decreasing line 211. So it was on the floor for discussion, so I think you do need that motion.
So, okay, all right.
Honestly, that says that you approve the budget as
Yes,
the
that's-
final numbers to be allocated into the two, 18, 19.
I had practiced this, Kathleen. I had really rehearsed this in my mind.
Sorry.
I had really prepared how I wanted this to go, so people knew what we were doing, and
Sorry to question it, I
That's
just wanted
okay.
to make sure we weren't making a procedural error.
I think if we made any error, it's that we're overcompensating for ourselves. Okay, so now, on the floor, seconded by Dan, yes, is an amended budget for the 18-19 year to go over to Timberlane and Hampstead to support the SAU, the business operations here at SAU 55 of $2,172,471. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. The ayes have it. I thank you for your work here. Some good discussion this year. Some, I think, time well worth spending. And now, we'll take a 4-minute potty break if you need it, but I want to move on to our treasurer appointment. So we're all set.
So are we in recess or what?
No, no, I'm just, I thought Dr. Farah needed to use the ladies' room, but she's back. So. All right, so we're going on. So I wanted just to tell our public and the rest of the board, so between myself, the Timberlane chair, and the Timberlane vice chair, we interviewed 3 candidates for the school district treasurer. It's an appointed position, and we're ready here tonight to make the recommendation for appointment. Mr. Boyle, would you like to announce the name?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Martha Sumner to be the treasurer for the SAU
So Martha Sumner,
from Plastow.
she's from Plastow. Do you want to give any information about her, or you think?
Martha Sumner is, she's a banker, works in Enterprise Bank. She's a multi-term selectman, budget committee. A lot of volunteering she's done in a lot of areas in this general area here, and actually has done the treasurer's duties in a lot of those volunteer organizations, and I think she'd be a very welcome addition to the group here to have another set of eyes here. I kind of personally like the fact that I like the banking background, looking from the treasurer's standpoint. I think that'll be a good asset for
And
us.
speaking for Kim and I think we were pleased that we had 3 individuals from our community. They were all good candidates,
Oh, yeah.
all good candidates. So that was very encouraging, that we have people out there that still want to participate in this volunteer realm that we're in, not even run for election, but actually get appointed to the position, so, yes.
Is Martha Sumner the one who was acting as the intern up to this point?
Yes.
Yeah, she's been helping us
Thank you.
out. So,
Did you have a second on Mr. Boyle's
not
motion?
yet, we're kind of
I'll
letting
second.
discuss. Thank you, Greg. I wanted you all to hear what a qualified and great volunteer Martha Sumner has been for Timberlane and for everybody here. She's a great candidate, I think. So if there's no other discussion, Kim, you're all set. There's no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of Martha Sumner's appointment? Opposed? That's 11. Opposed, 1. Abstaining, so it's 11 to 1.
And abstention was?
No abstention, I'm sorry.
Just 11-1, okay, thank you.
On to the lease. I believe, Timberlane got their things straightened out that they needed to do here. So here is the lease agreement. We are the renter, supervisory union, we're the renter. The owner is the Timberlane School District. It's in your packet. So we would, I guess, look for an approval to rent. Are we in agreement, this is what we want to do? Other than that, I have a very large car, we could move the whole operation into my car, and you could have the SAU office in my car. I don't know what else we do, but they need a place to be, so. Yes, Mr. Guide.
I'll make a motion to accept this lease agreement as written.
A second?
Second? Second for Mr. Boyle, any discussion?
Questions? Are there any changes from this lease agreement? Excuse me, are there any changes from our previous lease agreement to this agreement?
Mr. Dowd? Changes from
No.
the old agreement?
I mean, I noticed in the budgeting line, it was the same dollar amount,
Right.
but any changes in the language?
No, and not substantively anyway, the dates have changed. Taking a look at the local market and what similar space would bear. It seems in line even at this point.
I think $13 a square foot is a fair figure, very fair. So, hearing no other discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the lease as written? I don't know where, I'm gonna assume, so that's 10 of us. Opposed? 1. And Mrs. Jasenka stepped out of the room, Kathy, so. So, lease is done. On to policy, the second read of the Code of Ethics I had, thank you, Mrs. Belcher, got it into that format that we use, so that it looks like the other policies. The Code of Ethics is on one side, and then what I call the procedure is on the other.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Move that the board accept on second read Policy Code BCA and Policy Code BCA-X.
Second.
Second for Mr. Belo. Discussion. Yes, Mrs. Green.
So is just asking a question, is BCA-X a policy or is it a procedure?
It's really just an addendum to signature.
It's an addendum to the procedure.
So it is so it is not a procedure, it's part of the policies then, as an addendum.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'd like to point out again that not just in my opinion, but in the opinion of numerous lawyers, the provision that members will take no private action that will compromise the board or administration and refrain from private actions which would undermine or compromise official board action, along with final board actions, will be supported by all members of the board. This is an infringement of free speech rights of board members, and as such is unconstitutional. I think if the board, is so concerned about their legal fees, they should be more prudent about the policies that they
Thank you.
pass.
That's your opinion now. Be careful. All right, anything else? Yes, Kim?
Why don't you go
Yeah.
first? I'll
Brian?
go after.
Oh,
Okay.
sure. You're giving up your time to Brian.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'll let him go first. I think he,
Sure.
What, there's a couple things here that, first of all, I.
She's yielding.
Huh?
No, very nice touch. I have a concern about what Mrs. Green is pointing out could be correct, and obviously, we don't want to be dealing with a free speech issue here. So I look at this, I have a couple things I mentioned to you briefly to the chair before the meeting. So as I look at this code of ethic, I have a I have something basically that I guess I'll hand out to the board, but it is a conflict policy. It's a state school board association's conflict policy. This agenda item is code of ethics, so I guess I will stand corrected. Sue and I had a very, very brief conversation before the meeting. I took a little bit of, I'm concerned that, I share Donna's concern. To me, I'm personally, when I even have here tonight, I have no problem losing a vote on a board. I historically, all the boards I've served on, I don't go out of my way to challenge boards. However, that being said, people in this country have rights to do whatever they like to do. And I just want to make sure this language in here is not preventing these people from exercising what they want to do. We had, myself and Dr. Farrow were actually victims of a newspaper article by a fellow board member here, and this is all about ethics.
Do we have a reporter on this board?
Do you have a reporter on the board?
Yeah, you said you were a victim of a newspaper article of.
Yeah, I was appointed, yes. Yes, I was, myself and Dr. Farrow appointed, were challenged by a board member on this board
Okay,
about our ethics. So we're talking about ethics. Are we talking about ethics?
Right, and we're also talking about free speech.
Free speech.
Okay.
At the same time.
So that's, okay, so it's rather comical to me that I believe the author of this was the person who was challenging this.
There was a committee that was formed.
Is that right? So to me, as I look at myself and Dr. Farah's ethics, and I just find it interesting that how we were accused of being these rogue members because we have chosen to just do our duties.
Was the word rogue used?
I think that was the word.
Yes, that
Was
was
it-
the
was
exact
it-
word.
Okay,
Was it the
okay, okay,
reporter?
okay.
So-
While the topic is not I understand, and I'm giving you a little leeway.
And so-
But it's not the newspaper,
It's not the
it
newspaper
is
thing,
not
so.
on the agenda.
So, okay, and then, so Madam Chair, does this, because I do have one with me, does this SAU board have a conflict of interest policy?
A conflict of interest.
Does it have one? We have one at Timberlane. the
Timberlane
School
has one
Board
and
does.
Hampstead
Does
has
the SAU board have one?
We're looking at an ethics policy right now.
Okay,
I would
I'm asking you a
wager-
question.
I would
Do we-
wager a guess, since we have yet to adopt an ethics policy as an SAU board, that we do not have a conflict of interest policy.
So what I'll do then is you're welcome to look at it, and I'll be, you guys can review it, because it was something, came from a law firm, it was recommended by the Hampshire State School Board, so you guys can look at that when you do that.
Right.
But, because I personally, not that Dr. Farrow needs Brian Boyle to defend her, but I personally think we're a couple of ethical integrity individuals. So as far as I'm concerned, when I look out on my board for people's rights, again, at the very least, I would strongly suggest we have Jeff absorb this as a lawyer, because I don't think this board should be adopting something if it is possible that this affects someone's freedom of speech.
So I'm going to interrupt here and ask Donna to go back. Donna, if I were to number the sentences, and I tried to do this, and I really wish you would have discussed this with me earlier, but if I number them, sentence 1, sentence 2, okay, they're separated with a double space. It's section 3 that you particularly oppose, or it's the whole policy?
Section 4, final board actions.
It's 4, that's the one you feel is, I'm going to use your phrase, unconstitutional.
Yes.
That's the one you don't like. You don't think is, that it's, so where number 3 says, we encourage and respect the free expression of opinions, that's free speech. Nobody's been not allowed to speak. We're just trying to run this board in an, I believe, ethical, business kind of way. That's all was our intent when we did this. So, Kim, did you have something you wanted to add? Then I'm going to let Karen speak, and then we need to move this.
Yes, I did have a couple of things, and I thank Mr. Boyle for defending me. I did go back and review some of the RSAs that were quoted last time, some of the assertions that were made that all school districts, SAUs, have this language within their policies. I do have the RSAs here, Chapter 363 that you mentioned last time, Mrs. Yasenka. I also have Section 21G29 of the Code of Ethics. I also looked up numerous states that do not have this language in there, and I looked up numerous SAUs. So the assertion that this is, everybody does this is absolutely not true. I do have a question in terms of this. You know, if we're speaking about this, and I'm trying to grasp the meaning of this. So, Madam Chair, if a school board member were to call my place of employment and start inquiring as to whether or not I was a full-time employee there and what my employment status was, do you think that would be a violation of this board, this ethics? This code of ethics?
I'm not in a position to give you
Well,
an answer one way or
well,
another. Just
I
like
think-
I said to the newspaper reporter, I can only speak for why I voted yes, not for why anyone in the room voted
Well,
anyway.
could I pose that question to Mrs. Yasenka, who
I'm
did
not gonna
exactly
entertain
that?
that question. I
No?
don't think this is the appropriate time. You should probably take this off campus and off camera. Anything else about that you want to do with this policy? Changes you wish to make? This is a second read. We've had it for a month. Nobody,
I just want to,
yes, go ahead, Karen.
this came up in the spring because the board felt that they wanted to have a code of ethics. They did not request a conflict of interest clause or a code of conduct. It was quite clear that this board charged 4 members, Mr. Belo, Mrs. Sherman, myself, and Mrs. Abrazizi, to pull together something that this group would consider as a code of ethics to be followed. In doing that, this is not Mrs. Yasenka's code of ethics. This is not an individual work. There is not one original sentence in here. This is a compilation of codes that are used throughout the state and throughout the country. And if you would just permit me, the phrase that you are questioning is, as you know, it is in the Timberlane Board and it is in the Hampstead Board.
The same phrase.
It
The
is
same
not
phrase.
it is not in the Timberlane Board, it was stricken.
Take no private action that will compromise the board's actions or decisions.
That was removed.
It says we revised in 2013.
Correct, removed.
Is that correct?
It was removed in 2015.
I believe that Mrs. Green is referencing the school board rules
That was rules. I don't
Not-
think it's that.
and not policy.
What do you have there?
Policy.
Do you have policy or rules?
I have policy.
Yeah.
Let's be
Yeah.
dealing with policy. Oyster River Cooperative School.
A high-performing school system.
Recognize that final board actions will be supported by all members of the board. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration, and refrain from private actions which undermine or compromise official board action.
That's Oyster River's almost exactly. I liked the phrasing of that. I thought it was softer than some of the others we had read from Wisconsin and Illinois and Kentucky and other places were much more
The Wyndham,
aggressive.
the Wyndham School. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration, and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law or is received in confidence or executive session. The Campton School District. If I should be a member of the majority on any vote, I will abide by the, if I should be a member of the minority on any vote, I will abide by the majority opinion. I will not speak outside of board meetings against any majority decision which was reached in good faith. Northwood, SAU 44. Recognize that final board actions will be supported by all members of the joint board. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration, and refrain from private actions which undermine or compromise official board action. Salem.
Excuse me, is that SAU 50, that's Northwood's SAU, or is that?
SAU 44, that's their
Okay.
SAU board.
Thank you.
Salem. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration, and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law. And just by the way, the chairman of the Salem School Board happens to be a very fine and highly recognized municipal attorney in the state of New Hampshire. The Concord School District. Accept all board decisions once they are made and assure they are carried out effectively while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive means. A little bit different. Fremont. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration or the district and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged. New Boston School District. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law or is received in confidence or executive session.
Do one more.
Somersworth. Take no private action that will compromise the board or administration and respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable law or is received in confidence or non-public session. Litchfield. Support all board decisions and assist in carrying them out effectively. Want me to keep going? The rest are all state.
I think the poignant thing is that both Timberlane and Hampstead have this exact phrase in our code of ethics, not the rule list that we, I think, put aside a couple of years ago as being a little more punitive than we wanted it to be, and I agreed to that. So that's why I wanted to talk about number 4 on the list here, specifically. Brian? So.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned here, Karen, that basically that, a couple of those comments you just made, then why did you go out publicly and take on, if that's how you felt, I'm confused, if you served on this 4-person thing, why'd you go out of your way then to?
Okay, number one.
I'm confused.
It's freedom of speech.
Oh,
and it
okay.
works both ways. When a reporter called me and asked questions about a meeting that the reporter had already seen on Vimeo, it was quite clear to this reporter who didn't vote in favor of it.
Okay.
So she already knew, the reporter
So they
already
she already knew.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking the question that's not what your comment was. You voted for it, like Mrs. Sherman said, which I happen to agree with. I try to do my
So what are you
comments.
objecting to?
You pretty much went after Kim, yeah, and I.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
I'm just saying.
So you-
No, wait.
This is a matter of approving or not approving a policy,
But it's- but-
not
I-
what was printed in the paper.
I would agree.
It doesn't
What
speak
was
to the
printed in the
policy.
paper
Wait,
has
no,
nothing to do.
It does not
It's a
speak to the
newspaper
policy.
article.
Very, can
Okay,
I please?
stop, everybody stop.
Please.
Wait a minute.
Stop.
I want to invite
Stop.
both of you.
I'm gonna turn the
No,
film
wait.
off in
I
5
just want-
seconds.
You
Turn it
can
off.
meet with me
Turn it off.
if you
Turn
like.
it off. We'll
Turn
take
it
a
off, turn it
recess.
off. Absolutely, turn it off.
No, because we can't go,
This
we
is
can't,
ridiculous.
and she's getting criticized for it. It's,
That's not what I'm saying.
that's the way that
I'm saying if you want to
seeing it.
draft a policy, live by it.
Well, okay.
That's exactly what
Where
I'm
in here
saying.
would she have
Where did I
broken
not?
that?
Okay, so, let's be civil.
All right, this is a board meeting, and I don't think the board meeting is, the business at hand is to approve or not approve this. If anyone on this board has a problem with anything that I said outside of this boardroom to the press
Regarding this business.
regarding this
Personal
business,
opinion.
or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I invite you to meet with me. You want to discuss this with me, talk directly to me. Don't talk to each other, don't call the chair, don't act like you're, little kids. If you have something to say to me, do it face to face.
Karen, let me tell you something. I don't act like I'm a little kid. Why don't you wake up? There's only one person who should speak on this board, the chair.
I'm trying.
Sue Sherman is the only person who should speak publicly on this board.
Why is that?
And in her absence, the
that's
vice
not-
chair.
Wow, that's actually a
That's
huge
a
change.
rule
That's a
that,
huge
change.
freedom of
That's how we
Mrs.
do it.
Green wouldn't agree to.
Oh, please, we have a policy about that, Peter.
The
Who's the
chair,
spokesperson of the chair?
To speak
Who's the
on
spokesperson?
behalf
the
of the
chair
board.
spokes-
She wasn't
speaks for the
speaking on
board,
behalf
but
of the
individuals can speak for themselves.
About
Mrs.
board
Green was
business?
very in favor of
Absolutely.
speaking
Called
for
freedom of
herself.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure that would change a
Wow,
lot.
about board business.
Okay, I
you better
need
look
to
at the
bring this
policy.
back to this policy. Are there any amendments you wish to make, or changes you wish to make to this code of ethics? If not, I'm gonna call for a vote.
Has
There
somebody
is a
moved
motion on the
to?
floor.
Is
and
there
it's
a
been
motion on the
seconded.
floor?
Yes,
There is.
motion by Jason and second by Peter. I think we've all expressed our concerns and
We haven't.
a new fact. Donna?
Yes, I'd like to address Mrs. Jashenka's research, because, you know, many years ago, my mother told me just because everybody does something doesn't make it right.
Okay.
And this is a very typical example. These are infringements of elected officials' free speech rights. Not only that, but elected officials' duties to speak their mind to the public. And to many, that seems to be compromising or undermining official board decisions. But, you know, that's the nature
The attorney in the room.
of public comment and free speech.
Okay.
So to Mrs. Jashenka's point, that a lot of different districts have this policy, doesn't make it right, and it's never been challenged but in those districts legally.
And because it hasn't been challenged, you can't say that it's unconstitutional. It's not unconstitutional unless the court rules it unconstitutional.
And that is
board
why
that
you
hasn't
have a
happened.
$40,000 legal
Board
line.
discussion.
Jeff was trying to.
No, I'm not gonna entertain that. This is a board code of ethics, not a superintendent's code of ethics, not a business manager's code of ethics. It's ours to discuss nicely or argue over, but it's ours. You don't have to sign it. We have people that didn't sign the Timberlane one. I don't know what happens in Hampstead. However, yes, Greg?
Yes, Madam Chair. Could you offer some suggestions on what private actions could be, for examples? Like
What could be a
actions
private action?
would call, this ethics into play? Like,
Would be,
do you have any, Karen? I'm just curious.
Karen, can I turn it to Karen or
Yeah,
Donna?
no,
Because I'm sure Donna has a different, she'd say something different, so
Yeah.
let's hear from
I'm
both
just trying to see
sides
how
of the-
this would play out
Go ahead, Karen.
if we did vote.
Private action.
The number of people that I've spoken to about
Right.
this, even in the legal professions, have said there's a distinction between what is considered freedom of speech and actually taking action. If you're in the minority vote, the next day, that night, you're free to call the press and say, look, I voted in the minority, and this is the reason why. I didn't agree. That's freedom of speech. Taking action would be something, I don't know what it would actually be under the SAU, but for instance, say the SAU voted to hire a construction company to come in and do some work, and someone in the minority said, no, I don't want this, it costs too much, or for whatever reason. But yet, the majority says yes, and the construction company's been hired. And on Tuesday morning, they're supposed to come and start work. The taking action would be someone from that minority opinion, like if I didn't agree with it, if I stand out there in the parking lot and say, whoa, we don't want you here.
So undermining the overall.
Undermining the overall vote of the board.
You can speak your opinion, but you can't actually.
There's nothing in here. Actually, it even says encourage and respect free expression. And that's the freedom of speech. The other is action. And I've been
Do you
told,
agree
and I
with that
believe they're
private
told
act? Do you agree
differently.
with that scenario that?
I think that's an absurd scenario. What this
What-
is actually getting at is private actions which would undermine or compromise official board action would be blog postings and
That's not-
and initiations to withdraw their town from districts or to launch legal action or any number of things that do not involve strapping yourself to a tree in front of a bulldozer.
But you would say that strapping yourself to the bulldozer would certainly be an action. All right, Greg, did that help you?
That's great.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else? If not, I'm gonna call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the second read and moving this along? It's 9, I believe. Opposed? 3. Kathy, you got it? So it passes. All right, now we are to the live stream topic. Okay. So Tim Mullane authorized us to, thank you very much, Tim Mullane, to allow the SAU board to use the Timberlane equipment and internet stuff access to live stream this meeting. Now, let's rephrase. We take minutes. We film, when all goes well, we film this meeting, and it's immediately put out for Vimeo within hours. Right? But we don't, hours.
Days.
Okay,
Measurements of time, hours, days. How
Kinda
many hours
sorta
make
some
a
time.
day? Hours.
it's put out for public viewing. The reason we don't live broadcast this meeting is because they must have made a decision collectively that because we can't live broadcast to Hampstead, they thought it was less collegial and less fair to broadcast it to Timberlane and only let the Timberlane people be able to see the meeting and not the Hampstead. So they agreed collectively that they would stick with minutes and film. Now, that was before live stream capabilities. I want you to know that our live stream capability here, none of us see ourselves on live stream because we're in the meeting. But those who speak to many of us, when I watch live stream, it stutters, it flutters, it freezes, it backs up, you're speaking but there's no words coming out of your mouth, or it's an 8-second delay. It's not perfect. It's hardly it's an experimental process. It's only as good as our internet services here. We have the technology director here that could probably answer some questions. So what's in front of you is, if we want to live stream, if we agree collectively to live stream to Timberlane and to Hampstead, Hampstead has to advertise that the way they could get on the live stream would be to use our Timberlane address, whatever that is, livestream@timberlane.net, whatever it is. We need to give them a chance to advertise it in Hampstead. So I want to hear pros and cons, how you feel about doing that. Timberlane's fine about us doing it. Danny, and then Kathleen.
Yeah, before, when it was just broadcast and not live stream, I could totally understand that. But now, with us having the technological advances that we do, and we can live stream, I don't see any problem why we wouldn't be able to just live stream it. And I'm not saying broadcast, I'm saying live stream it.
Yeah, we don't have the capacity yet to.
Right, but just to live stream it, so, pretty much anybody, not even just Hampstead people, anybody can watch an SAU meeting live.
Right.
Which is fine.
So-
As far as I'm concerned, I don't see a problem with that. Anybody who's got internet access.
That's
can
what would
watch
happen.
that
In
live.
Timberlane, they wouldn't we're not gonna live broadcast it to Timberlane.
No.
We would live stream it to Timberlane and to Hampstead using our
Right.
address.
That's
So
how I
nobody's
view
gonna get to watch it live except us, because we're here. Get that? Is that confusing? Kathleen?
All right, so we've had some issues in the past where people who are not completely involved in the school districts don't understand that Hampstead and Timberlane are separate districts governed by SAU55.
Right.
My concern would be that we would further complicate an already confused situation among a certain demographic in the public by having an SAU meeting broadcasted to them on a Timberlane streaming channel. So if there was a way to make an SAU channel, then I would be more inclined to leverage that mechanism for those districts that are in the SAU. But to have it be labeled a Timberlane, it's already a confusing situation. I don't want to add anything extra to
I
it.
am concerned about that. They have to get on the timberlane.net live stream access. So I don't think we have that option. I'm not saying we wouldn't in the future, but right at
Right.
this second, at this hour, at 10 after 9, we don't have that capability.
It would,
Does it make sense to table this, do more research? I mean, Kathleen's got a good point.
And Greg makes a good point, because that's the questions I was asking. There's a significant cost to setting up a live stream and. Ken's
There
trying
is, right, and I was gonna mention that when I was wrapping this up. There is some financial stuff here involved.
yeah.
It's not huge, I don't believe, but if we're setting up another channel, that's more. So, what do you think? I really like to, here was my dream, that we could kind of come to consensus on this and not have to make a motion and a vote, but I'm willing to do whatever you want. So do you agree with Greg? Let us do some more research I hadn't thought about an SAU channel and just but we're not gonna meet again till spring. I know it just, but we have film tonight, so it'll be out on Vimeo at some point in this time spectrum. Continuing. Brian, what do you think?
Must be my lack of technology and information here. How come Timberlane school board meetings can be live streamed?
Because we have the channel.
Right, I understand, but although I know people who don't live in New England who watch our meetings,
We
so,
watch it on the computer.
okay. So why can't they do that in Hampstead?
They can, and that, but that's what Kathleen's concerned about, that confusion piece.
Well, I just think it's
I'll try.
a public meeting, so I would think anything you can do to make meetings more public and more people knowing about it is exactly what you want to do.
What she's talking about is if anybody, to watch an SAU live stream, they would go to a Timberlane website.
Okay.
That's what her point is. She would rather it be an SAU55 web address to watch an SAU.
Just change the address. Okay.
That's what they're
And that's
getting
what Dr.
information
Metzler-
on.
Yeah.
That's,
That's
we gotta,
So that's why they
we
said-
gotta price that out, it's not in the SAU budget as we speak, but we'll do that research,
Right.
price it out.
Hampstead doesn't live stream, correct?
Correct, we
So
don't have live
Hampstead,
stream.
we'd be offering Hampstead citizens something that they don't get in their own community to watch their own school board. You know, and whether we get an SAU channel or use the Timberlane channel. I hear Kathleen's point of view and I hear Brian's too. I'm not,
Just to clarify it a little bit more for Brian, I've had people ask me, you know, what it's like at the Timberlane board meetings and stuff when it comes to Timberlane stuff, not realizing that we're two separate boards. You know, when it comes to, like, some people think that Hampstead is part of Timberlane.
yeah.
So I don't want to further confuse that area by having them, direct them to a Timberlane website to watch an SAU meeting where Hampstead board members are present. Keep it separate. That's all.
So what do we think? Yes, Kim, what do you?
I don't know, I'd counter that with, if somebody's confused or taken the effort to go to that extent, I would hope that they would, as you said, people ask you if they're confused, what's going on.
We've had people purchase houses not understanding that they were moving out of the Timberlane district. So yes, as soon as I find a person who doesn't understand, I definitely clarify with them, but I don't want to add anything else to that confusion.
I think I would just feel like I would want to give more credit to somebody to figure this out, that they should be. I don't think it's that complicated a scenario.
So your meetings aren't televised?
Our meetings are televised on cable, but they're not live streamed because our meetings are at our town hall, and our town hall does not have the live stream capability. However, our schools, our schools
No.
don't yet either. No, we do cable from our schools. We have a separate cable channel for our school-based meetings.
They can watch it live on cable. They just
So we
can't,
have-
you can't watch it live on the computer.
Exactly.
That, typically ours are up the next day.
Right.
Within 24 hours. They're up on the town cable while in the school.
Yeah.
So they're never online?
No,
They
they
are.
they are online
They
They're
within about
converted
24
digitally
hours.
in the same way that these meetings are.
Yeah, and
That's
that's the
it.
other thing. By the
Same-
way,
same-
you can get on the big website in the sky and get on Vimeo
Right.
and watch one from 1914, I don't know, 10,014, you know, you can just see it. You have all this- Well, and Donna, you can pick out it, right? You can pick it out of the Vimeo and you can make it a blog post, et cetera, et cetera. You can use that, it's there. And yours are too. Jason?
But yeah, it's just a couple of notes and you know, maybe I'm just off base. I guess I don't necessarily understand what the impetus is to, and I appreciate Timberlane making the offer, but the impetus to make any decision on this tonight, especially when we have a couple of open questions in terms of cost, in terms of creating the other channel. Our next SAU meeting, you know, barring an emergency meeting, isn't for 6 months. I don't necessarily see the need to make this decision here and now tonight. And the second thing is, I'm all for transparency, and I think that, you know, obviously the more people we can communicate with, the more effective. But, you know, I think as the charity pointed out, I mean, if you desire to watch the meetings on your computer, that is available. Granted, there's a time lapse, but it is available. If you desire to watch if you desire to attend the meetings, as we did have a member of the public here, I mean, they're open meetings. they're also typically, although they're not here tonight, they're also typically covered by local news media, whether it's the Eagle Tribune or the Tri-Town Times. So, there shouldn't be a question of we're not already exceeding what's required of us in terms of transparency. I guess my point is, because of those things, and because we're not gonna meet for another 6 months, exactly is the harm that we suffer from putting this on the table and getting the answers to those questions and then revisiting this? What exactly harm
Just
do we
find out what it
suffer
costs.
over the next 6 months? So.
Anybody else? Because I'll go back to Donna if no one else wishes to speak. Donna?
So we have an increase of $3,000 in the contracted services. And some of that is to pay for video services. So we have a $3,000 increase. Anyway,
You think there's money in the SAU
I
budget,
think
is
there's
what you're saying.
money in the SAU budget to do this, yes. The other thing is the harm is that there would be yet another meeting, or maybe even 2 or 3 meetings that are going on without the transparency that certainly our Timberlane people have become accustomed to expecting of their elected officials. So I think it's only, it's funny, Mrs. Sherman, when you said, this is an experimental technology. It reminded me of living in Canada 20 years ago with socialized medicine, where they said that MRIs were experimental. And they kept saying they were experimental, and vets had them before hospitals had them. But, this is technology that our citizens are expecting, and I think the it behooves us to deliver it. Now, so I want to ask, why is it exactly that we can't live broadcast these meetings?
Because Hampstead can't see our channels. So it goes out of Danville Channel 23 or 6? 22, some channel.
Satellite TV.
It goes over Channel 6 in Plastow. In Atkinson, it goes out of Channel, that's 22.
Okay, we all have different channels in our towns, so
No, they're all
Hampstead is.
connected to the,
They
Get this
can't-
channel. They don't get
So
that
how
channel.
much more expensive is it to make Hampstead get the channel as opposed to doing live stream?
That's what we would have to
That's
get
what-
That was
that
back to the beginning of the
information for.
conversation, we
That's
said
what
we
we're
need to
gonna
do some
find out,
research
what
and
it would
price it
be.
out. And I don't like the term "make them get it," if
Yeah.
Hampstead wants to, that's a little
Well, I
different.
was gonna say, that's
If
not even a
Hampstead
question
doesn't
of
want
the school board, that would be for our selectmen to work out. We don't control the
how many
cable
channels you have,
channels
right.
in our town.
That's
That's
Comcast, right?
our selectmen.
Can I please just note that the 24-hour, 48-hour turnaround of the video that Ms. Green is so concerned about, and the technology advances that she wants to leverage, where did that come into play with the fingerprinting conversation?
And thank you for that point, but let's
That
move
has
on.
nothing to do with
That's okay, okay,
transparency
okay,
to
okay,
the
okay,
electorate.
okay. Stop. Stop. All right. So, are we making a motion? Is there a consensus? Greg,
I was gonna make a motion if you want one.
go ahead, if you want to make a
just
motion.
table it as a chair?
Want to make a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table
Second.
a live stream until, further notice, until there's more research done.
And it won't be till spring before that, but does give us some lead time, right?
So we're not gonna have an emergency meeting over this.
I don't feel we would need an emergency
You
meeting.
got until spring, so it better be like this thick of information.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote then.
The best guy in the business.
I think
He'll get
Kathy
All in
seconded.
favor?
Second. I think it was Dan that
Kathy,
seconded.
Danny
Sorry.
did. We were going along pretty good. All those in favor then of the motion to table and let some further investigation be done about what we can do? In the affirmative, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Opposed? 1. Abstaining? 1. Okay, now we are to our minutes, thank you, of our October 18th meeting. These are the public meeting minutes, we'll do those first, and then we have some non-public that we'll pass out.
Motion to accept the public minutes from the October 18th, 2017 meeting.
Second.
Comments or questions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote then. All in favor? like 11 opposed, 1 abstaining, none. 11, 1, 0 to approve. And now we have a set of non-public sealed minutes.
Yes, they are sealed, so we'll have to collect them once you're done, and if you have any discussions about the subject matters, you get non-public.
So did you hear what Mrs. Belcher's advice? If we decide to go into some discussion, we need to go into non-public for that and then come back out and move along in this meeting.
Thank you.
So let's get these on the floor if we could.
So I'll make the motion, the board accepts the meeting minutes of the non-public session from October 18th, 2017.
Second.
Second by, I think I heard Jim, was that his voice?
Are we,
These are sealed.
okay, so I do have a small change that I'd like to make.
Okay, then I think we should go,
Point of order. My recommendation, if it doesn't deal with the subject matter, like if it's just if it's a grammatical error or something like that, we can probably just address it here, but that's my recommendation to you, Madam Chair.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, you don't need to go into non-public. I'd
okay,
just
be
like to
very
say-
careful.
I'd just like to say, I'd like the word also stricken from the second, last paragraph on page 1 in the last sentence, beginning with it.
Yes, got it.
I'd like to strike the word also.
We see that? Second to last paragraph on page 1 on the bottom, after the name, Mrs. Green. Okay? Anything else? Not, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of
Them yet.
I'm sorry, Donna?
Finish them yet. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay, so what were you asking me? May I have a few more minutes, Mrs. Sherman, to read these? Of course you may. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were still reading. Let me know, Donna, when you're all set.
Thank you. I'd like to know if other members of the board remember the second, the last two sentences in the second paragraph to the end, beginning with "at this point."
If we recalled that,
I
I
recall
remember
that.
the first sentence, the second sentence.
I recall both of those.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't recall.
yeah,
In,
yes.
Mm-hmm,
The second line especially repeated a couple times.
yes.
Where it starts. Okay, yeah, got it, yeah. Mhm. All set, Donna?
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll call for a vote then to accept the minutes with that slight correction that was made. 11,
I'm opposed.
I know, I was going there. 11, and opposed? Did you change your vote? No, you
No,
you were in
no,
the
I thought it
11.
was unanimous.
No, I'm sorry.
Donna caught me off guard.
Okay, 11 to 1, all right? Okay, those need to go back to Mrs. Belcher. How are we gonna sign this ethics policy?
Can we have a discussion of why they're sealed? Can we consider unsealing them?
I don't think so, because of the mention of employees.
I don't believe,
Detail that.
Jason,
What?
Dawn is suggesting we unseal these. I think this, yeah. Right, right.
So the matters.
Well, I think there's some reputation stuff in there. What about this? When are we signing this? In May?
You should do it at the beginning.
May. Yeah. Okay, we are at the spring meeting, set your date, reorganization meeting. I didn't bring my calendar, so Danny?
I'm not, can I talk about what the items are on the meeting?
Sure.
Well, I like that I see we're gonna establish a policy committee, or
Thank
try
you.
to.
Thank you.
anyways. Also, I think we should add to that the live stream topic that we just
Oh, yes,
discussed.
thank you, thank you. We'll put that on, is that okay with everybody? We'll take that off the table and have hopefully some information to give about live stream, thanks.
And, have a different thought about this.
But anything else on the agenda? I mean, we don't have to approve this agenda now, we
No,
can,
no,
Yeah.
we've got some time to put stuff
Yeah,
on, but,
That's
well,
my recommendation.
yeah.
too.
So
What-
let's pick a date.
What's the normal, I just
May?
can't remember, what's the normal?
No, we have one
May.
in March.
April?
No, I think it's
It's in
April.
there, the 11th or the 18th.
After the election, it's not,
The 18th,
what did you
Right
say?
on here, it's either the 11th or the 18th.
11th or the 18th.
Of April.
Yes, last year I think it fell closer to.
Oh, May, because we had the delay in the election.
I was gonna say, tax day, and it was not on the 15th, so we had moved it out a week later.
Okay. So again, the dates choices would be the 11th or 18th
18th, yes.
of April.
Of April, please, yes.
We're gonna amend the 18th.
I'd say 18th.
18th?
You have a conflict, Sue, on the 11th.
I have a conflict on the 11th.
Also, in the off chance we get delayed elections again and everything.
Oh, I
like
hope
so
that doesn't happen again.
We can only hope, but.
All right, everyone okay with that? To schedule our next time together as the 18th of April. Any other administrators report?
We have none.
None from the administration. Mr. Guide.
I just have a question about the correspondence.
Yes.
I think Ms. Caruso had a good point. Is that, if I could ask Dr. Messler, are you going to reword the word administrator on the website to professional staff or anything like that?
Oh, we'd already done
Website's perfectly
Is it-
clean, I don't know what
is it
she's referring
Done?
to.
I don't
'cause
know. I
Yes.
haven't looked, if I'm perfectly honest.
I had worked with that, so, because it's
You did
under
look?
my,
Yeah, transportation
good?
and business services is a separate category, there's administrators, and there's the transportation and business
Staff.
services, and
Okay.
then there's support staff.
Okay.
I
There's
can
three
double check it
categories.
again, I thought we were
I know
all
we
set.
changed that policy last time we met, and I didn't know if it was reflected with that.
We'll double check that.
She looked, but it was
It
fixed
was
a
a
long time
while
ago.
back that
Okay.
she'd sent that.
Oh,
Notice
I
how
didn't-
thin
I
the
didn't look at
file.
the date, so I have no
21st.
idea.
But
But
notice
great.
how thin the file is. She sent it on, I think it's the 13th was before the meeting. Before we'd had the meeting to make the change in that policy.
Oh.
So
Okay.
she's,
I recall talking to Ken on a weekend,
Yeah.
I did that on a weekend.
Okay, like I said, I don't look for that, but I saw it and, took it at face value.
was
so.
good.
I
Notice
don't
how,
have the date, though.
notice how
But
thin
Kim's
the
got a date.
file
She's
is.
probably-
The date is
Give it
October
back. One more time.
21st. It was after we last met, so
Uh,
somebody might wanna, you might wanna.
I'll
look at
double check
this.
it again, Kim, but I thought we had it all straightened out.
No, I know the website's straightened out, I'm not sure, Kim probably has the date right, I don't know the date, I just know it was a
I-
Saturday, because I was bothering
Okay.
Ken at home.
Everybody stop.
Okay.
We're okay. Make sure that that gets straightened out if it isn't, but I thought it was all set. Any other thing, because I'm gonna adjourn. And have a great holiday season, everybody, and we'll see you in April.
You too.
Mild winter. Oh, so we'll put sign policy, sign.